All right. What's up, everybody? This is episode 60 of Hoops Talk with Dave's Joint. Um, Shout outs to everybody that's been showing us love thus far. For those who haven't seen any of our episodes, go check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. But today, we have a very, very, very special guest here today. He is a great coaching legend of the grassroots game. If you don't know him, you should know him. For many, many years, he coached the New York Gauchos. And outside of coaching the Gauchos, he was a Superior Court officer in New York City, helped plenty of young men make, the right choices throughout their lives. Enough said. I give you Mr. Dave McCollin. Coach, thank you so much for coming on to share your story.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the generous introduction. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, let's start. What was talk about how basketball began for you.
On a personal level, coming out, I grew up in Bronxdale houses, which is in the South Bronx, which is now known as Judge Sonia Sotomayor houses. And that community there, Bronxdale, Soundview, Bronx River, Monroe, has a strong basketball following. A lot of mentors that from the community centers, the Bronxville community centers, Soundview community centers used to run leagues over in the Kips Bay Center. So I gravitated towards basketball. Like in my junior high school, I played for my junior high school team. And then in 1969, Adlai Stevenson had just opened. And so they allowed, instead of allowing the neighboring high schools such as Monroe or Clinton or even females from Jane Addams and different schools like that to transfer in, we were gifted with being the first 9th and 10th graders to enter that school. It was a comprehensive high school. Back then, public high schools were in my community were very good. Stevenson High School was one of the highest academic high schools in our community coming out of the South Bronx. It was college-bound high school. We took college-bound courses. And the gift that my basketball coach, high school coach, Ron Kestenbaum had, was he had the best players from all the neighboring junior high schools where we were all competitors coming up in the junior high school ranks. Junior high school 125, 123, 101, 127. We're now all in the same schools, those of us that didn't go to D with Clinton or didn't go to Monroe. So there was a nice pool of talent to draw from, and we started out as a JV, and then we did pretty well as a JV. And by our they allowed us to become the first senior. So being the first 10th graders, we were like the seniors at 10th graders, and then we were the first juniors, and then the first senior graduating class, and the freshman class that came with us just followed right behind us. And the reason why I bring that up is it made high school a very unique experience, not only socially and academically, but the fact that we was able to win the PSLB division our second year as a varsity opened the door for Stevenson to eventually become a Division I school in the 1970s. We won it in 1973, my graduating class, which included Nestor Cora, Ty George, Mike Watkins, Calvin Frazier. And then the next year, they repeated the championship, I believe, with Kevin Starr, Tommy Lawson, Nestor Cora again, because he had made All-City, Ty George. So back in the day, you had to win the B division twice to matriculate to the powerful A division. So I say that very proudly, that the fact that our second and third year as varsity, we went from the B division to the A division because of our success, is something that set the groundwork for a legacy for Stevenson basketball that was very rich in the 70s and going into the 80s, as far as being, not just being a school, high school power, but to go along with that, a lot of us had the opportunity of using the basketball to matriculate to college or just do good things in the community.
So you already answered the Stevenson part of my question. Shout outs to the Stevenson High School, the inaugural high school class of Adlai Stevenson of 1973. So my next question is, talk about growing up in Bronxdale. in the 1960s, you know, the civil rights movement? Like, what were those times like for a young Dave McCollin?
Well, growing up in the 60s and that in the South Bronx, and growing up in, I could say Bronx in particular, that line that's become very popular, it takes a community to raise a child, was very prevalent as a part of my childhood. Bronxville at that time was a very, very integrated community. In terms of just the people, the apartments are small in terms of it only goes to from the first to the sixth floor, so they're not really considered high rises. And so the tenants in that building was a mixture of white, black, and Latino, Puerto Rican. And I would say for the greater part, we all got along. We kind of all looked out for each other. We all knew each other. And it was like that throughout the community. And that was a plus. And I have, even though it was a rough neighborhood and it was a rough going, I have fond memory of how the community shaped me because of its diversity. And I also have fond memory of getting my butt beat because most of the times when I got in trouble, it wasn't that my mother or father caught me. It was usually one of the neighbors that would say, yeah, I saw David somewhere that he may not have supposed to be at that time of day, you know. Let's say if I might have, you know, skipped lunch at school or went to do something, you know, to hang out. And the community looked out for you. It wasn't like we wasn't living in the environment like today where no one's allowed to discipline or comment about what they're doing with their child.
Right.
You know, it was common knowledge back then that your neighbors looked out for you. They would scold you.
Mm-hmm.
I won't lie, even in some cases, would grab you and say, you know, I'm taking you to your parents because you're doing X, Y, Z.
Right.
And that was a plus. You know, now growing up in the 60s, a negative to it is that the elementary school and junior high school I went to, when you left the projects and you crossed White Plains Road, going to junior high school 119 on Buckley Avenue and then right across the street, junior high school 125. And like I said, we in the schools, we would, it was integrated, but we were sort of like maybe 1/3 of the population. And I stressed that to say, it was understood after school was out that we had to get out of our minds on the other side of White Plains Road. There were certain areas that it was policed or it was known that if you could not be in certain parts of those neighborhoods, one school let out. And that, you know, so there were frictions there. Like Parkchester, which is where my son lives now, David Jr. Back when I was young, if you was in Parkchester after the store, the cops literally would either chase you out or escort you out if you were black. So there were pockets. So on one level where Bronx still had a more community environment, and there was also economics difference once you left the project, because then the people that were homeowners or they had like a what I would call a divided line racially, that you were told and known you're not supposed to be there once the sun goes down. And that was like one of the first orientations to racism and maybe what they call institutionalized racism and certain rules that are unwritten. This is not your community. You're not supposed to be here once school is over. So there was a balance of that going on in the 60s. I am definitely a child of the 60s. I mean, Stevenson was a very political school. We were young. We protested a lot about what was going on at the time. It was the Vietnam War. A lot of us had mixed feelings about the undeclared war. So it was something that we was engaged. Our teachers in Stevenson encouraged us to be active and to bring it up in the social study classes, in certain forums, in the auditorium. So it got to the point where they had to give us a thing there to kind of co-opt us, because we was constantly having walkouts when there were certain things that was going on where we thought was social injustice. And so you're talking about white and black and Puerto Rican students really becoming activists at the age of 15, 16, 17. And I feel proud that I grew up in that environment, because it definitely shaped a lot of what I ended up doing in the future. And it affected me actually wanting to mentor and coach kids as a way of giving back once things kind of changed when Nixon became president.
So as a youth, like, I know you played ball back then, like what were some tournaments that you loved playing in those days?
Well, the tournament that I played in coming up in the junior high school ranks Even though Kips Bay was right there, I never played in Kips Bay. I played in Forest Playground. Ronald McDonald, who ended up going to LIU, he's one of the people that were trying to give back in our community. Him and Ron Rutledge, he was assistant coach at St. John's for many years. We had players like that would mentor us, that would come to the park and run practices. The Ray McKinnons, the Biggs, Dudley Biggs, and his father was a referee. So they would kind of run practices and show us different skills in the park. But as far as the leagues, I know for myself, I had to go outside of Bronx area. And Bronx River gave some tournaments, but I played in Forest. I played in Mitchel Gym when I was 14, 15, which was something that always stuck in the back of my mind. When I played in Mitchel Gym, Hugh Evans was the director, who ended up being a long-time referee in the NBA. And so I got exposed to him when I was 14, 15, because it turns out the janitor from my junior high school were best friends. And the janitor, and I say janitor in a positive way because he ran the whole school. They called him something else, they super engineers. He grabbed us and said, listen, you guys need to get your behinds downtown if you want to really see how good you are. And so he had put me and Tony Lawson and Louis and come us on the team, played a tournament in Mitchel Gym, played against some of the best players in that community. Bebop, Sundance, Alonzo played in it. These are names at the time. These guys were outstanding ball players, even when they were 14, 15. So the runs was good. The Colemans from Mitchel Project. So that stuck in my mind as I later on went to Lehman College. And at the time, I never knew I would end up being a coach. But that community and the tightness of that community reminded me of Bronxville, Monroe, Soundview. So it was something that stuck with me. And it kind of shaped my path in terms of becoming a coach.
So did you all right, so you went to Lehman College. Did you ever play ball there?
No, I did not. I matriculated out front when I left graduate Stevenson. I went to Indiana State University my freshman year, and now I don't know. I played on the freshman team there briefly, but as I alluded to, I was very political when there were things going on in the school. That I was protesting against that the coach threw me off the team. And while I was like, I had a relative of mine die in Vietnam. And so that and some of my political views, I was one of the people that what everybody's talking about with Colin Kaepernick, where I had mixed emotions about, I was showing how I felt about certain things, but didn't always stand up when the flag was being honored. And because of that, I caught a lot of flack from it. And it was decided to be on the team. I had no regrets about it at the time, and my feelings were strong. I didn't think I was just honoring the flag. I was just trying to get my voice across. And it was coming from a place of political awareness and also pain, because I said I had lost a relative in the Vietnam War. And I thought it was like, why? Why was he put in that position to die for something in a place like that, in a culture that had done nothing to us? And where that came from. So I was angry, and I carried that anger with me when I went to college. So I left only on after my freshman year, and then I matriculated to Lehman. But when I went to Lehman, I had stopped playing basketball. You know.
So you graduated from Lehman in '77?
No, I didn't finish Lehman.
Okay.
No.
So when did the Mitchel Projects, or shall I say, Mitchel Bullets, come into play?
Well, I was a student at Lehman. I was doing very well there as a student, where as part of my work study, they asked, I went to work on 250 Broadway, right across from the mayor's office. And my job was to interview students from all the various CUNY schools and junior colleges. They would come in to the work study program. I was one of the interviewers. My job was to speak to them and extrapolate from them what they thought what their major was going to be, what they were looking to do in the future. And we had a list of different jobs where they had internships, where they can work in an environment that prepares them for what their major is. But instead of the job paying them, the college program, I can't remember what it was called, they paid them a stipend as they were working in that business whether it was private sector, whether it was with nonprofit, or East Side House Community Center, which is where I ended up transferring myself to. I did that as an interview for maybe about 8 months. Then I wanted to change. I kind of felt a little stagnant, and I always felt like I was missing something in terms of, even from my political and my consciousness of how I was raised, in terms of giving back. So I had sort of jobs come across my desk about that Mr. Jim needed a counselor. So I spoke to my supervisor and I said, I want to apply for this job. And she was very gracious. Her name was Dal Mack. You know, we talked about it for a while. She said, well, you know, you're kind of taking yourself out of, you know, you have good skills. You could work in the private sector. I mean, it was a suit and tie job. We always, you know, use downtown Manhattan. And look, I mean, that was a learning process for me, which I enjoyed. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the environment, to be honest. But I told her that I felt like I needed to do something more. So she, you know, gave me her blessing. I went down there and Mr. Jim Sampson interviewed me. And he told me the parameters of the job. Being a youth counselor, you're working with boys and girls. You have to engage them in certain programs that we have going on here, and certain sports programs, certain after-school programs. And I was like, great. I had been a tutor in Stevenson High School my senior year. I was a reading teacher, helping young men and women how to improve their reading skills, because that's something that I had always been very good at, reading comprehension. So I told him that, yes, that sounds like something I wanted to do. And so he hired me. And like he said, I'm being honest with you, you're not costing me anything. You know, you being a student at Lehman, they're paying your salary, not me. He said, so for me, it's a win-win. And let's see how it works. So I started working in Mr. Jim. Now I'm a sophomore at Lehman, and I'm again living on my own. Back in my day, when you were looking to get out of the house real quickly, and that's just the way our parents raised us, about being self-sufficient. So I had my first apartment really when I was 17, and then when I came back from Oneonta State, I got an apartment when I was 19, and so now I'm 19. I got my own apartment. I'm working at Mitchel Gym, and I'm also working at the White Castle, where I worked at off and on, because that's where my mother worked. May she rest in peace. So I'm juggling these things, and that's where I started working with the young kids, Kenny Joy, Reggie Howard, Ty Joy, Rodney Strickland, Dedrick Irving, Byron Strickland, Darren Burnett. They all live in Mitchel Project, and they had Reggie and Kenny had saw me play in the night center, and I wasn't no star player, but I could play. I could play with good ball players. I was a point guard. I was a point guard people love to play with, because I was pass first back then. It's a different game back then, and so they had saw me playing in the night center. So they asked me, can you run a practice with us? Can you, would you think about working this out? So you playing with our older brothers. I was playing with Paul Cooper, Reggie's older brother, whose name I can't remember. Not Gary, he had another brother named the Coopers, the Joys. We had some good runs. They had a tournament called the Miss Night Special. Keith Lewis, the Dowards. We had a great time. It was a nice tournament. The Grants. And I procrastinated, to be honest. Cause I'm like, okay, what exactly y'all asking me to do? They said, well, we just want to have somebody work us out. You look like you know something about basketball. And I'll be honest with you, David, it was like the last thing on my mind with what I had on my plate. I thought I was doing a good job in Mr. Jim as a counselor. I'm single, I'm dating, what have you. So I'm giving them this look like, okay. They bugged me more than once. I was like, okay, you guys really don't know what it's like to really have a real practice. So in my mind's eye, I'm saying I'm gonna run these young men so hard that they're never gonna bother me again. And so I ran like a pretty intense practice. I went through my college practices at Oneonta State. I had Ron Kestenbaum run serious practice. Like I said, we were city champs, so I remembered a lot of the drills that we did. I put David through all these drills. It must have been about an hour and a half practice, which for a bunch of 12, 11, 10-year-olds that have never practiced. They were exhausted when I finished with them. I made them run wind sprints, like 10 wind sprints at the end of practice. They did suicide. I thought I had it. The next day I went to work. I came in the gym. They was like, when's the next practice? I'm looking at them.
Wow.
wow, you know, and I'm like, y'all serious? I said, y'all like y'all was in some pain back then. They're like, yeah, but you know, we had fun. They enjoyed it, and they wanted to learn. They were like sponges. You could see it in their eyes that they wanted to learn something. And I was like, you know what? Then the light went off and it hit me like, okay, if I really want to have an impact on these young men, if I run these practices, then there's something y'all have to give me because you're cutting into my personal time. And they was like, what? I said, you guys got to give me your report cards. They looked at each other. A couple of them balked. You know, I remember looking at, you know, Mark Lewis, you know, and Jesus, and they kind of laughed. The Murrays, Robert Murray, and all of them. And they looked at each other. It was like about 15 of them. I was like, well, then I guess I'm not doing it. They're like, no, stop. We'll do it. They said, what do you mean? I said, well, when your report cards come out, you know, as this time goes by, you need to be showing me that you're doing well in school, or else you're wasting my time. Mm-hmm. I'm in college, okay? I've always been you know, for me, it's about academics, okay? And I think, so for me to do this basketball, then you got to give me that. Dave agreed to it. We started having practices, having workouts, and we played in a local East Side Out settlement, which is comprised of 4 projects. It's Mitchel, Patterson, Millbrook, Mount Haven. And so the directors ran like a little 12 and under league. And I remember the first game we played in that league as a team, we played against Patterson. I remember the coach's name was Brother. And he had a crew of kids that Mr. Page had been training, and they kicked our butts. I mean, you're talking about an inauspicious start. I mean, they must have beat us by about 30. And they it hurt. You know, here it is my first, I'm running all these practices, I'm trying to teach these kids these concepts, and they don't see the result of it right away because I said they happened to be our first game. So I went back in the gym, you know, went over, you know, I kept working, I started scouting some of what Patterson did. I started looking at, you know, Millbrook and the other team, Mount Haven. Long story short, we ended up going to the playoffs. They had the playoffs, we went to the championship, we played Patterson again. And some of it, I think they was overconfident. I think they slept on us. And some of it was I improved in terms of knowing what my strengths and weaknesses was. And you learn basketball is not, it's about chess. And it's about whose hands you put the ball in. Who do I want to try to get in foul trouble, mismatch? And in that short time, I was able to maneuver enough to where we ended up winning we won by 1. And we won the championship, and everybody was surprised. I said, it was a nice crowd there. Everybody thought we were blown out. And just the look on those young men's faces, my players, they were so happy. Now, there was no awards, there was no trophies. So I ended up buying them trophies. I went down under the Brooklyn Bridge. There was a trophy place down there that was real popular called Lon Bell. In fact, a lot of leagues back then would buy their trophies from this guy right there off Bleecker Street. And I bought them trophies. I made them all give me like $2. And I said, now we're gonna get a name, Mitchel. We came up with Mitchel Bullets, which today would be politically incorrect, but at the time, I wanted a name that had some strength to it, that put a little intensity or maybe a little fear in people. Right. And I had some shirts we printed, and they put in a couple money. I put in the rest between my job working in the White Castle and Mitchel. And so now we became a team, Mitchel Bullets. And they had won their first tournament. We had a little award thing. So, and now the parents are starting to get curious. And so, which is a good part of the story, because then parents were like calling the gym and speaking to my director, who is this Dave? Oh, my son, they keep saying Dave, Coach Dave said this, Coach Dave said that. So then Jim, called me in and he said, no, it's not a bad thing. He said, but evidently you have an influence on their kids and you're new here and they want to meet you. They want to know who you are. So he says, I said, what's the, you need to call a meeting in the gym. I said, you know what, better than. I said, I'll make arrangements. You can have them, I'll go meet them individually. I said, because I'm not, I'm young. But I said, I will one day be a parent. And it's important that they get a feel of who their child is being influenced by when they walk out that door. So I literally went to like about 7 different breakfasts, just sit downs, 10, or maybe probably more than 7, 10, to where I met most of the parents individually, let them know what I was about. And, why are you taking an interest in these young kids when you're kind of doing that? And I explained to them. I said, I'm just trying to plant seeds there. I'm trying to work my way through college. I understand that, you know, college is not something that's a given for in most of our communities for various reasons. A lot of it being economic, or because one thing also that was very prevalent in my growing up, all they kept telling me was to get an education. You got to get an education. Basketball is good, sports is good, but that's not going to get you where you go. You got to get that degree. You got to get that education. Okay. And I'm very proud to say, even though I didn't finish college, I went to college for 2 or 3 years. I traveled through it. I learned a lot from it. And I said, us growing up with meager beginnings, my five siblings have all graduated from college. And I give my parents a lot of props on that, because we came from very meager economic beginnings. But, you know, my sisters, my 4 sisters, my brother, all of them have their degree. I'm the only one that didn't finish. To my, you know, I can live with it now. It does something that has bothered me. I should have finished. If it wasn't for lack of intelligence. But sometimes life gets in the way. But not to get off track. So that's where the Mitchel thing went, in terms of me trying to work with these young men. I even took them to my classes at Lehman to let them see what college was about. Just like I speak about, traveling is one of the best teachers. And when you're young, sometimes traveling is just getting kids out of their neighborhood. Sometimes it's just getting them out of their borough. And so, see, I went to Lehman uptown in Bronx. Mr. Jim is down around. I spoke to their parents. I said, yeah, I have an English teacher that's willing to let me bring. I told him what I was doing. He's willing to let me bring my kids to the class. And I took them up there. And it was something that I know all of them didn't remember, because it made an impression. Just the whole atmosphere of being on the college campus. The fact that something little is when we walked in the classroom, we didn't sit regimented like the way school is structured. This teacher, it was interdevelopment communications course. He had us sit in a circle, like a semicircle, and we kind of all sat in a more relaxed, more comfortable, interchanging environment. And I said, the kids were all like, they were taken aback by it, but I know I was planting that seed with all, that this is what college is about. There are other things going on than just what's going on in front of you in your local community. And I thought it was a good thing.
So, when did Lou de Almeida and the Gauchos come into play?
Well, okay, as Mitchel, we started to expand, and I said, after I won the Riverside tournament, I met Miles Deutsch, who we call affectionately the mayor of the Bronx. He was a referee. He was very community active, and he ran tournaments in Mitchel Gym. And one day he walked in to set up for a tournament that he was giving with us in the senior division. And I was finishing up a practice, and he was watching. And he came over to me and said, listen, I'm the site director for Citywide Athletic League, which was a big league back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and what have you. And they had different sites in the 5 boroughs. And he said, I'm the Bronx site up there in Haven Park, uptown in the Bronx. He said, you're working with these 12-year-olds, these 10-year-olds, why don't you put them in a tournament up there? So he gave me the roster. You know, I scraped up the money. Like I said, I was doing it out of my pocket. And so the first out of the community tournament that Mitchel Bullets played in was citywide that summer in the 12 and under. And we did okay. I mean, we came out above 500. The first time I was exposed to coaching against teams like Riverside Church. You had different various communities. Claremont had a team. And Jackson and Projects had a team. And at that time, Riverside was the dominant team. They won the league. And so now my players got a taste for that. I got a taste for it. I'm seeing the effect that my kids are giving me their report cards. High school kids, 154, kids that go to IS 183. I'm seeing that it's having a positive effect. So then I have a tryout that winter. And then I decided to expand into midgets and 10 and under, even though I already had 10 and under players on my team. And so that's when Darren Burnett, who was playing with boys yesteryear, when he wasn't playing with Derek Smith and Mr. Ali Embrow, he was coming to my practices. I had Rob Williams, Michael Colombo, Byron Strickland was on my first midget team, Jeffrey Bullets, team. So now I have a 14 and under team, I have a 12 and under team, and I have Rodney, Dedrick, Ty Joy, who they're playing in the 10 and under, Mr. Page Biddy League. I have all that going on. We're competing. We won the 10 and under Biddy League. I'm going to championships with my midgets constantly. I didn't win any, but we went to championship in the Brooklyn USA tournament, our first time. playing against some really heavy program. We played in the CBS tournament. We went to the championship. So now we're moving like that. We're starting to get known. But something else is going on. I'm starting to see also, I'm training some of these kids, and I'm watching some of them after like about 5 months of practicing with me. They come in the gym with Riverside bags. And a couple of them, and I'm like, well, why do you have a Riverside? Well, you know, coaching. I decided to, go try for Riverside or what have you. And so as a coach, when you're working with kids, I know anybody that's coached for a long time, they know what I'm talking about when you're working with young kids. You want to see your kids grow, but at the time when you really feel you're doing a great job with them, and you want to kind of get them ready, like I was only coaching midgets, so once they were 15, I expected them to move on. But when I noticed that some of my players were being plucked from me, or being encouraged to go other places, it's something that stuck in my mind. Okay, I knew it was something I couldn't control. I wasn't rich. Like I said, I was single. I was finances out of my pocket. I wasn't getting any help anywhere else. So I was like, okay, so I lost a couple of kids that way. And I'm gonna tie that in later, because then you're talking about the Gaucho thing. I kept running into Lou when I was coaching in the 15 and unders. He had a team with Chito, Angel Cruz, Mario Eli's brother, Clark Eli, who was a very good ball player, may rest in peace. Cesar Montehusi, who was known as the Black Dr. J. He had a very nice crew that he was doing well with. And he had kept saying to me, I would run into him, we would talk, and Machito had a lot to do with us talking. Machito kept telling me, yeah, I watched this young man. I like what he's doing with the kids in Mitchell Gym. Now the kids from Patterson are coming and playing with him, and Milford. I had a blend of East Side House kids, which we needed to go outside the neighborhood. And so we were, like I said, we was very competitive. Those kids were tough. And so Machito had recommended that Lou talk to me about maybe helping them. Because Lou ran just a senior team. He was out of the West Side Wild, 63rd Street. He had a nice winter thing going where he was taking his kids to play different prep schools in New Jersey, Connecticut, Lawrenceville, Choke, trying to get some of them scholarships, showing them traveling. Lou and me were on the same, like Lou stressed the importance of their school education, but one of the better ways to educate someone is to travel. There's no greater tool of teaching than travel and letting them breathe in different environments. That was part of his philosophy. So he had asked me to come and work with his players, but David, it was a little, I wouldn't say I was intimidated by it, that's not the right word, but they were basically my peers. I mean, I'm doing this, I'm 19, going on 20, I'm just making 20. And Machito and guys that I ended up coaching, Drew Dow with Dave Crosby, Curtis Falls, Nappy, Mike Napolitano, the referees now. They're like only 2.5, 3 years younger than me. So I'm looking at them and I'm also watching them and I'm like, I'm working with young kids. How does that work? How do I get them to respect what I'm doing? Because that's a whole different way of coaching. There's two aspects to coaching. There's training, and if you have the ability to teach kids to go to be the fundamentals, and then become, and basically what the philosophy is, you work kids hard on the fundamentals, and if they have extra talent and you give them as a foundation, then you're putting them in a situation where that talent is going to take over to go with those fundamentals. If a kid is an average player and you drill him in the fundamentals, then he's going to still be able to compete with players against him that are better. And so now you're talking about breaking into kids that particularly Division I talent, Division II, Division III. I didn't really care. My goal was to keep them out of trouble and hope that they get a chance to go to college. So to me, you get a degree from Lehman, you get a degree from a small D2 school up in like Manhattan or whatever at the time. I'm in heaven. I'm good. So my point is, I'm looking at this senior team that Lou has, and I'm just like, before I said no. I said, I just don't think this will work. And so then, Lou evidently was very observant with what I was doing with my players, because then Chito and them had convinced Lou that you should maybe get a younger group. So now he's looking to put together a junior team, and he puts together Bethel Devin and Billy Goodwin, and he asked Darren Burnett. I think Keith Robinson was on the team, Chucky Harris. And Darren comes in the gym, Mitchell Gym, because I'm still working there, I'm still a counselor. And he says he brings Billy Goodwin with him. And Billy played for St. John's when they won the Big East. And I didn't know Billy that well. I knew of him. So Darren sits there and he says, listen, I know you and Lou have been talking. I know you're saying you don't really want to coach. You didn't think it would work, but Lou is asking me to come play with his junior. So I look at Darren and say, what do you mean junior? So Lou doesn't have a junior. He said, yeah, but this is going to be his first year. And he's playing in Brooklyn, USA. And Brooklyn, USA was a big program. They ran big leagues. Back in those days, every borough had, it wasn't just Riverside Gauchos. There were a lot of good teams. You had Intercession Church with John Black. You had Brooklyn, USA with Lester Robbins. I remember Solomon Mullin. I know Ray Haskins, coach from Alabama. A lot. He was affiliated with them. Was training them there. United Queens with Lou Gahn. You had Kenny Smith's brother, Aim I. There were just combatants. But everybody there was a lot of community, a lot of borough pride. So Mrs. Burnett, Darren said, my parents are not going to let me go to this game unless you're there. So Darren, I go up there with Billy and them, and Darren talking to Mrs. Burnett, who knew me well by then. And they respected me and what have you. They said, we don't know who Lou Dalmade is. That's all this is about. Mm-hmm. Wants him to go to Brooklyn, and we understand that he thinks highly of you. We feel better if you go with that. Mm-hmm. That's how the first time I coached for the Gauchos. I went to the game. I sat on the bench next to Lou. Lou is very good at perception of personalities in terms of knowing how to motivate people and what have you. Things that help you as a basketball coach, believe it or not. Because basketball coach is not cookie cutter. And one of the things that I know I learned from Lou is knowing how to look at. I didn't coach every player the same, but we have a basic foundation. You talk to players, now you connect with players. You got to, the time you spend on the downtime, you start to read your player's personality, and that's how you're able to get a lot out of it. Because I'm not saying the same thing to Rod Strickland as I'm saying to Jerry McCullin, they're both my point guard, or David Kane, or go on and on. So if I'm talking to Mashburn and I'm talking to Conrad, they're two different personalities. Most coaches have a problem being able to handle that whole thing. That's called management. There's training and coaching and teaching, and then also another aspect of coaching, knowing how to manage players and personality. And I'll say this very bluntly, a lot of people can't do both, okay? And you'll have people say that on all coaching level, well, he's supposed to win, he has all that talent. If I was sitting there, I would say, no, that's a bunch of bull. You have to know how to handle. Talented people have atypical personalities. Some talented people have quirks. Not all of them, but a lot of them have certain idiosyncrasies that are different. It's what makes them talented, whether it's basketball, playing the violin, Herbie Hancock. And part of your job, if you're a teacher, is knowing how to motivate them to work with others, which is not easy when people are very talented, and you get a lot of people that, and knowing how to make them see the greater good. And at the same time, you're respecting their individuality, but they give it to you. Okay? And I lost my train of thought here. So I learned that I watched Lou that day, and Lou said, listen, I know my players now in terms of, but one of my faults is I don't know the game. And he said, I have a tendency, Lou would come to a game with 12 players. And a lot of times wouldn't use his bench. Because his attitude was, if it's not broke, why change it? And on some level, I understood that. I understand that concept. But I was like, you got to get these other guys involved, or you're going to lose. So as I sat down at the end of the first quarter, they weren't doing well. So he looked at me and said, I need you to take over. And he had introduced me during the train ride. Darren had kind of vouched for me. And so I did a good job. I'm coming back and took down, we won. We ended up going to the championship, but we ended up losing. Brooklyn, USA. It's a great game. We lost to Brown and that crew. But long story short, we go out after the game and we talk. And when I say we go out, we took the whole team out. And that was another concept I respected about his. He took us to some restaurant in downtown Manhattan. He walks in there and he talks to the guy and tells me he has a group of young men with him. And he sets us up in the back. Everybody sees us. But we're not hidden. We're right there in the middle of, we're only black people in the place. Mm-hmm. And he says to me, I work hard. I just watch these guys work hard. And my thing is, I'm going to take my players to eat where I am. And I want them to experience how I eat because I don't eat. He said, I don't want to go to McDonald's or White Castle after a long day. I want to go and relax. And he said, these young men are really working hard. You just finished working hard. And he said, I'm trying to explain to you why we're here. Instead of I could have easily just went to a fast food place, got it by somebody, went on. And then also that was the environment where we also had communication with our players. They start to relax, they open up, get into some nice conversation. So it was a learning tool. And it was another way of traveling. At the time, that's traveling locally. We're from the Bronx, with most of us from the South Bronx, where we're going into Midtown Manhattan, eating in a white restaurant, dealing with a whole different environment. How do you order? How do you eat properly? That was a big thing. We all made sure everybody ordered salad. Some of them were uncomfortable. Actually, I was a little uncomfortable, because I was worried about the perception of things, But then I quickly got over it because I'm really seeing what's going on here. And I'm like, wow. And I was impressed with that. I was impressed with the concept. And so for one thing led to another after that. But we had the compromise was, I will coach your juniors and seniors only if you incorporate my 10 and under 12 and under 14. Wow. And it was a compromise because that dude was very honest. Like that wasn't really my interest. I look at it like seniors is like the MBA of this level, and it's the cream of the crop. That's where the most attention is, and that's where if you're successful, Lou said, I'm able to get my friends and people that I've learned in my walk of life to help me contribute to what I'm trying to do. He wanted to go national. He wanted, Riverside might have been the model, but he looked at that as a model, but he had some of his own concept about how to go national. He wanted to compete on a national level, but at the same time be able to travel and be able to teach, be able to open our minds up to things that were not so regimented. And to give you an example of that, we avoided playing the AAU for many years. Because the sites of the AAU tournaments were in some of the most unexciting places. Jonesboro, Arkansas, in places like, Florida was okay, but the place in Utah where the kids it was like, what do you do with your players when you're not playing? So we played in tournaments in San Diego. And we played we went to that first year. We played exhibition games, went on a 10-day journey to Israel. We went to Israel and we stayed in 7 hotels in 11 nights. And just the whole learning of it. We went to Jerusalem, and the players, we had a tour guide that took us to the shrine with the Wailing Wall and the path that Jesus walked and the rock of Islam where what's his name, Muhammad. All the major religions are in Jerusalem. And here you have these high school guys, most of them who have never been on a plane. This is where we're at the end of the summer after we played it all the summer. And it was mind expanding. It was different. We caught criticism for some of those concepts back then. The way we sometimes fed our players. We were told we were spoiling them. And why we didn't play in the AAU, and Lou was like, I don't want to, what's the big deal? We're playing in national competitive tournaments. And we did. We played it against the very best, but we just didn't always travel the path that other people were trying to dictate to us. And I give Lou a lot of credit for that, because the places we traveled at the end of every summer for like almost 7 straight years, after we played in almost every league we could possibly play in, we would go to Hawaii and just play 4 exhibition games and relax and just enjoy the environment. And those are things to this day. You talk to any Gaucho, anybody that played with the Gaucho, that went to Israel with us, got Julius Allen, went to Puerto Rico, Israel, Puerto Rico, Nappy went to Puerto Rico, Dave, that group, Darren Burnett went to Hawaii, Pearl Washington made U.S. John Salley. These guys, at the end of playing in like 10, 12 tournaments, that was part of the reward also. Because, we knew the guy that set up the Hawaii trip knew they couldn't compete with us. But he wanted to show the people in Hawaii, this is what New York basketball was. These guys, at that time, New York was the cream of the crop. And we were part of it, okay? In terms of why New York was always churning out some of the best ball players. Eventually, when some of the other programs fell to the wayside due to finances or certain leaders leaving and moving on, it did almost look like maybe like early 80s, like the Brooklyn USA kids. And I had a good relationship with Ray Haskins, so when Brooklyn USA dissolved to some degree, some of the kids went and played for Riverside, like Scurry and the kid Lionel King, I believe. But because me and Ray were cool, and we became good friends because I went to, me and Ray drove 19 hours to Bill Pronouns in Georgia, which was like 5-star camp, but down south. It was a different guy. So me and Ray drove. We split the ride in 8 hours apiece. We got to know each other. He had Beto and Ice, they were 10th graders. And I brought the Stevenson kids, Ed Pinckney, I think Fred Brown came, and who else was Stevenson? Steve Bolden. So it was a combination of Stevenson and Alexander Hamilton. So that carried over into the summertime when Brooklyn Jerry broke up. So that's why Beto and Ice came and played with us, because they knew Coach Day, you know. And so that's all part of how, you know, this all expanded. And me and Lou got together, and I think, I mean, for the rest from there is, you know, it's history in terms. I think we did some positive things, and we planted some positive seeds. And the Gauchos are still in existence today.
Now, talk about, you know, your years in the court system. Like, you know, talk about, you know, some of the things that you used to do at your old place of employment. As a court officer.
I started working in the courts in November of 1983. And it was a balancing of, from my perspective, here I'm at that time, by the time I started working in the courts, I had been with coaching Mitchel Bullets, and then with the Gauchos. I started that in 74. So you're talking about 9 years being really intensely into working with kids, mentoring, traveling, competing. And the Gauchos, we're practicing in, I think we was practicing at Dalton High School on 86th Street. Well, by 83, we might have been in Harlem at 197 on 35th and all that. Now I'm working in the courts, and I'm watching the other side of the coin daily. I mean, I was clearly aware of this side of the coin. I mean, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, and as much as I brag about Bronxdale and Soundview being a village to raise the South, there's a rough side to growing up there too. Okay, so you saw a lot of things, you see a lot of things. So now I'm working in the system, and in terms of, I'm working trials, so I'm watching young, predominantly minority men wasting their lives, getting caught up in some of the things. The reason why I started the Mitchel Bullets, keep kids away from gangs. You had in Casanova, you had Mitchel Bullets, you had Savage Skulls, and being a part of that, that means you was hustling, you was involved in the drug game, extortion and things of that nature. And I'm seeing this on a daily basis. I'm seeing this waste of human potential, and whether you're black, white, or Latino, it's a waste of human potential. So I realize I'm also blessed that I have the balance, and it made me motivated even more, and made me appreciate more what I started doing and what I'm doing with the Gauchos and the role I'm playing in terms of trying to be a positive mentor with young men. And I said there was a way where I would use that in a sense, because when you coaching is much more off the court as it is on the court. And you have kids that have issues, and they talk to me after practice. So a lot of times I would have them meet me at lunch. And lunch at that time started out in the Bronx courthouse, over there by Yankee Stadium. And they would meet me, and I'd make sure they come in the building, and I'd have somebody offset the desk, let me know when they were there. And then I'd come down in uniform, and you know, we're court officers, law enforcement officers. A lot of people have a misconception that we're like just guards. I mean, we have jurisdiction throughout the state of New York. I say that proudly. We protect the area around the court, just like police do. And we have more jurisdiction than police in terms of our status in terms of throughout the state. And I wanted them to see that part of what I'm doing. And then I would also let them meet me in the courtroom and see what was going on. Because I always made them come before I was free. So they would come and watch hearings, bail hearings, things of that nature. And they would look, and they're seeing young men that look like they should be sitting in school with them. Like, that guy should be in my class. And then afterwards we got leave, they would ask me about it. Yo, did I hear that correctly? That guy's only 16. He just got, or 17. He's just got 10 years. What did he do? I say, Robert, Or he attempted murder. He had a gun. He shot at somebody. Thank God he didn't kill him. And the judge gave him 10 years, 10 to 15. He said, well, he's not coming back out until he's 31. Damn. And so we would have those conversations. I did that when I worked in the Bronx, and then it even got even more intense when I started working in Brooklyn, because I went to Supreme Court, where I was constantly just working in the criminal trials. In the Bronx, I mixed up criminal with landlord-tenant, which I also wanted them to see. With landlord-tenant, we called it the zoo. It was a madhouse, and they needed to, people trying to keep their apartments, landlords trying to make money, that whole chaos. So I would let them see that as well. And then when I went to Brooklyn, I started working in the gang parts with the gangs and what have you. So a byproduct of that, when I went to Brooklyn, was, I can't remember the brother's name, and I got his face in my brain, but I'm at that age where it will come to me after we.
Right.
He approached me. Everybody in Brooklyn had heard about the Gaucho by then. It was after we had the Russians. So throughout the courts, a lot of people heard about it. In fact, after we beat the Russians, Lou came to the courthouse. The DA of the Bronx was Mario Morello. And he was big, man. He ended up dying from a heart attack, but it was big back then. So I'm working in my courtroom, and also my captain comes in and says, McCollin, they call it by that name, McCollin. You're wanted upstairs in the DA's office. So I'm like looking at it like, what? What are you talking about? He said, go up there. He said, I don't know what it's about. You won some basketball game last night that's been on the news all over the country. And I said, yeah, we beat the Russians. We had just opened up our gym. We were one of 2 teams out of 21 teams they played that beat them. And coincidentally, I had hired, not that they charged me, the security for that Russian game were my colleagues from the Bronx court office.
Wow.
And so and thank God, because even when we looked at them, they came, they didn't come in uniform, but they all came as a group. And what they were, maybe out of 10 of them, maybe one was black, they were white. So they kind of draw attention. And right. Lou was like, these guys, I said, that's our security. I said, because this gym's going to be packed. You said you told the media. And so they just kind of spread the items. They sat around. They didn't know what to expect. They had heard I was a coach, but they thought I was just coaching little kids. So they were like in awe when they walked in the Gaucho gym. And so they were the security for the team. So long story short, not to get off track, the next day after we beat the Russians, we got so much publicity that Mario Morello, and Fernando Ferreira, the Bronx Borough president, called Lou and had me come. I was in uniform. There's a picture that we have. Me, one of the players was there, Russell Smith, who runs businesses in Harlem now. He has his own barbershop. That's Russell Smith Sr. Russell Smith Jr. played for Louisville.
Right.
Okay, so Russell's father was one of our first Gauchos on the Biddy team. So we were all there. We took pictures and everything. They gave us a plaque pronouncing it Gaucho Day. So all that publicity had carried over when I went to Brooklyn. So this brother approached me that worked in corrections and said, man, I got these, at that time, this show called Scared Straight was very popular, where you took young men that thought they were hard and tough, you brought them to jail, you had these guys that were doing life, get all in their grill, try to tell them, take the glamour out of jail. This is not, going to jail is not something that should be a bitter past. All right, because once you get in the system, they got you by the string for the rest of your life. And your future is limited, your job opportunity is limited. You put down, you got a felony, forget about it. A lot of people are not going to hire you. So he said, would you bring your Gaucho team to Rikers? And I was like, I thought it was a great concept, because during the winter, the tournament season is slow. So you have a lot of guys that were trying to get into junior colleges or small division school during the winter leagues that we also playing the prep school schedule, trying to get them to finish up high school sometimes, or if they didn't get recruited, we're trying to help them get them into a school. So part of the schedule was we decided to go to Rikers. And I remember Andre McCullough was on that team. His nephew was playing in the NBA and played for Syracuse. McCullough.
Chris McCullough.
His brother's say the name? His brother playing on some team, and his nephew is. And I coached Andre and his older brother, Birdie, his nickname, Albert McCullough. So Andre was on the winter team. He was young though. He was only 16 that time. He wasn't playing. That winter. And I can't remember who was also on the first team. So we go to Rikers. Now Rikers is a secured prison facility. And these guys right away, you can see, they're joking about it on the bus stop. Yeah, we're gonna go in there, we're gonna bust these prison guys out. They probably all out of shape, eating that prison food, yada, yada. And I'm like, don't sleep on them. You know, I said, a lot of these guys, because they're in jail, a lot of them were good ball players. So we go, and right away, the security, I had to give up my gun there. You can't have a gun in prison, we had to secure it. The whole going through these doors, slam the door, another door, slam the door. And we walk in this gym in Rikers Island, and all up along the corridor, straight out of like the prison movies, we got all these guys screaming, yeah, y'all punk ass motherfuckers, we gonna bust your neck. Excuse my French, I didn't mean to curse.
No, it's cool. You can say what you want,
just
Coach.
Screaming at my players, and these guys all start like moving around, and I'm like, come on, you know, focus on me. That's what I was saying. You know, whenever I coach my players, focus on me. Anything else, I'll take care of. Nobody's ever gonna hurt you with me. Focus on me, because I've coached in some very hostile environment. So, but you can see they're starting to like, wow, you know. And then I said to them, and think about it, you guys are going home. These guys aren't. So we played the game, and I can say this because he's out now. But Richie Adams was actually the first game we played. He was playing, so he knew us. He came and gave me a hug. And so Richie definitely remembers it, because Richie was a great game. I remember Andre McCullin tried to dunk on Richie, and Richie, he almost did it. And Richie looked down and like, no, you know, that's the way it was back in the day. We had a great time, but we were not allowed to win the game, and for good reason. But that was not something I could tell my players, because I could never tell them, I want my players to play hard. I'm not going to sell my players, but they're not going to. So that time we went there, went down to the wire. I think it went to overtime. We ended up losing by a couple. Questionable call, you know, at the end, which I knew why. And my players didn't question it, because one of the things I was very strict with my players is don't ever use the referees for this game. So those of y'all that ever see this podcast, I'm telling you now, if you're worried about winning the game, no matter what you or I did, at the time I never told them. I went there, we had that game maybe for 3 straight winners. And it was a great learning experience for a lot of my players. I think it was a reality check. Because these were guys, a lot of them played high school ball, they didn't get recruited by college. We're trying to find them different smaller schools, upstate New York, you know what I'm saying? You know, schools like I went to Oneonta State, Binghamton, we're trying to get them in schools like that, or junior colleges up in Westchester. You're like, listen, you have a choice still. A lot of these gentlemen that are right, because some of them will get a second chance, but most of them won't. This is how they want to be living. If they blow trial, or if that fact that they have to plea bargain out, I would explain it in the whole process. This is not something that you want to live through, okay? And so that was, damn, I wish I could remember that brother's name. But that was a great experience, and it was another element of what me and Lou were trying to do, working with kids, you know, that we trying to work with kids that maybe even other coaches would say, yo, you can't do nothing with young. You know, he's encouraged to go there. Well, let me give us a shot. You know, we ain't likely to remember a failure is nothing but a try. You know, that was a big part of our mandate, the concept of the Gauchos with Lou Dominated Eye. Don't get me wrong, not all our kids were ruffians, but you want a mixture of both. Because quite frankly, some parents would come to my trial because they saw it, you know, let me put it this way. We want to raise our kids in a better environment than we grew up in. So my kids didn't grow up in the project. And now that's a good thing. They grew up there, home ownership now. Private house, but I have parents just like myself. But the fact that we survived that environment, and there's a certain dirt you get under your nail, you do sometimes worry about your kids, because you got to show up different paths for the world, because they don't have that way of being a path. You know what I'm saying? So I would have parents bring me their players like, yo, Dave, man, you know, I want my son to get knocked around. You got some roughnecks on your team. I need him to, you know, he's kind of pampered. I'm trying my best to love. So come on, I want to bring it down to South Bronx. We live in, you know, uptown, and, you know, we got a home and everything. And I get it, because I was doing that with my children, who I love dearly. And they would complain to me, because I would tell them stories about growing up in the project. They would, how come you don't let us go to the project? I was like, that's a different time. The projects has not the village that raised the child, unfortunately, in some situations. And we're living in a different world where there's more predators out there. So I can't just let you run outside like you were out there when I was 10. And my mother just looked out the window and told us, make sure you come upstairs when the lights get dark. That whole environment, I had to explain that to my children. So I say that to say, the fact, you know, it wasn't intimidating to parents that families that had strong family units, they sometimes felt like, yeah, this is good for my son. He needs to be around different types of people, you know, to kind of let them know there's a different world out here. So that worked well in terms of building the program. And it was like the buddy system. You would see guys that come from different economic backgrounds or different exposure to what their families had education-wise, and they become the best of friends. And you know, basketball, like any sport, it's lifelong friends. You know, the bonds you made growing up coming up through the ranks and all that, people, a lot of those guys are still best friends today. God bless. So.
So speaking of players, what was it like coaching a guy like Rod Strickland as he was growing up? Because you saw him grow up at Gauchos, you saw him.
He's a Mitchel Bullet.
Yeah, you saw him grow up at Mitchel. Like, talk about seeing him, you know, through high school, college, and then the NBA.
I was blessed to mentor Rod and guys like Rod and Jamal and Dedrick, David Kane, Billy Singleton. I think, you know, just throughout. So then Ronnie Arnold, Conrad. Conrad came to me a little later. Rod was on with 9, and he's from Mitchell. So he lived right across from the gym. And Tyrone. So that was their gym. It was their gym before it was even mine. I think there's a fine line, and who. I'm stuttering now. I don't like to sound like I'm bragging, but I think I had a period where I was very good at what I did in terms of the effect I had on the players that was around me. Some people dismissively would say, well, you knew Rodney was going to be a pro by the time he was 14. Stop. You know, you knew Jamal Mashburn. Tommy had him, and then Tommy brought Mashburn, and he had just turned 13. You knew Jamal. No. And, you know, and it's disingenuous when you say that to us, the guys that work with these kids from the beginning, the Lamar Dyson, the Tommy Swinton, the John Black, as if you don't really want to acknowledge that we probably have more to their development and training, whether they have a good college program, than their college and high school coaches. And there's that, it's racially biased, and all in there, they give us these negative names, the AU coaches, which I've never considered the playground coaches, but playground, when they write all about it, it's like we have a bad influence on our kids. These are our kids from our community. And I take umbrage with the fact when you know, Rodney worked very hard to get to where he had to work. And I helped. But don't take it any way. It wasn't like Rod was gifted to go to the NBA no more than Jamal was, no more than Eric Mobley was. These gentlemen work hard. They sacrifice. They don't do a lot of things that normal kids growing up in their age group have time to run around and do, because they're putting their time in to being a student and also living this thing or dream of, you know, basically all of them, they want to try to go to college and play college ball. And, you know, so watching somebody like Rod, and I say this in great respect with like all my players, Rodney had his ups and downs in his development. Rodney would be the first one to tell you there were times he hated me. Okay, but it's out of love. At the time when you're doing things with your own kids, and Rodney is not my child, he had great parents, but being a mentor, there were things I had to do to get a point across to Rodney that at the time, sometimes he thought about quitting. And he'll tell you that. I benched Rodney. I was arrogant as a coach, and I always tell people, part of me, if you believe in yourself and being talented, you have to have a certain conceited arrogance. And if you didn't do certain things, I mean, there were times when I think Rodney had missed a couple of practices, you know, and he was in the playoffs in the tournament, so we got the championship game, and when he came to the practice, you know, we bumped it. Rodney was strong. And so I said, fine. I didn't play him in the championship. Now, see, what I'm saying is, and I use this phrase, when I'm mentoring you and I'm coaching you, I'm playing you for the long game. Okay, now by this time now, I'm very confident. I'm winning a lot of tournaments. I'm coaching multiple divisions before we expanded, and Fred Neal and Dave Jones came down in 83, probably it was 84, because Les Pilgrim was with me in 83. So they came out in 84. I'm coaching every division. Okay, and if anybody doubts that, all you gotta do is talk to the referees back then. I wish all that citywide and at 8. and stayed there till 6. And they, out of the graciousness, the people that ran Rucker, Jelly Roll and Bill Rawls, and once I got to know him, citywide was Riverside's tournament, but Bill Rawls was the commissioner. And they would look and say, yeah, we don't want to keep him running around. You know, he's doing the football team. So they would, as much as they could, keep my games on the same day. Instead of, I play all my games on Sunday. But I would be there all day. And what I'm saying that ties into with Rodney is, there were times, you know, it wasn't all peaches and roses and all that, because part of me trying to get Rodney for the real world as far as playing ball is, you're going to have, I'm not going to be the one to not really be hard on you when I see you stepping off. Because then I'm doing a disservice to you. And if your parents wasn't seeing you doing that, they would be upset at me. And well, they should. Okay, so I said, Rodney got benched. Rodney sometimes had to come off the bench. And I was arrogant enough where players knew if you came to my games late, we had problems in practice, don't get me wrong. I'm into the whole thing of different personalities, but I tell them, once you come in my gym and you get between those black lines, and I learned that from Mr. Page, you put all your baggage, it's like you take all your, whatever, you had a bad day at school, something happened, you leave outside, now you mind, and you with your family in here, and we're gonna do this thing. That doesn't always work. People have bad days. And when I benched Rodney, I remember for one championship game, he was so angry at me. And I wanted him. Because my message to him was, and I said to him, and we laugh about it now, I can win this shit without. And I would never, you know, and that's something that I see that's changed. I had a conversation with somebody from the California a couple of years ago, and Cece was sitting there, Cece Alcott, and said, no, that was Dave. You know, in the sense that I watch you, if you make your star players, you put demands on them, and the other players that, if you do that with your best players, the rest will follow. You know, and I've never had a problem doing that when I was really into what I was doing, and I had the kids come do it. They knew what I was going to demand them, and they knew also that if they stepped out of the line, I'm going to win this game without you. So, yeah, you got MVP the last tournament, but that's not to say I'm going to treat you different now. I'm not going to let, so I think that was, and I say that to say, I know that helped Rodney, because Rodney really never really got big-headed as he started to really blossom. Like I said, as Dedrick blossomed, you know, we had some friction. I remember one time Dedrick got mad at me, I took him out again. He's like 16, and I'm like, look, you're not doing, you know, he kind of raised his voice at me. I looked, and I know Dedrick since he was 9. Robinson was 9. So, you know, it's like, some coaches can't handle that. You can't treat your kids as if they're 14 when they're 16. Part of coaching and mentoring is you got to adapt to that, the age that they're getting older, without kissing their ass. You just look at it like, you know, I don't, you know, the things I did with you at 12 and how I relate to you, I'm not going to just relate to you like that because you're 12. I got to give them room to become men. I got to give them room, but they have to do that within some boundaries that we respect each other. And I think to this day, when I see the love I get from my players, most of my players are in their late 40s. The youngest ones are in their late 40s, most of them in their 50s. And they always comment like, damn, coach, you seem so much older than us when you was teaching us. And I was like, yeah, I was 19 going on 20, and now 10 years now, I'm 65, they're 50. And the guys like that, you know, in their 60s. So that was part of planting seeds for Rod. Now, one of the things that was something I look back on is once Rodney blew up and he was in college, and then he went to Oak Hill, which I could, you know, going to Oak Hill was rough. Good. I don't know if you've ever been to Mount Wilson, Virginia. No,
but I just interviewed their coach not too long ago.
It is just there's one post office, one main street. It's predominantly affluent kids, and then the guy Steve Smith has this basketball program, which he does a great job with, albeit, and I'm a little, you know, he gets the best players from different states, and he molds them into a team. Okay, I'll leave that alone. There's something I was going to say about that. Rodney, after they won state championship tournament, went to Oak Hill. Isolated environment, and he made it through. It wasn't easy. He made it through. I mean, right. Yes. Lloyd was also there. He didn't make it through. Lloyd purposely, I'm not going to bite my tongue. And he said it to me, Coach, I can't stay there. I just not me. It's just, you know, I'm like, I know it's not you. That's why we're here. You know, that's why Rodney said, it's a means to an end. You got to get your grades up. Steve Smith's wife was very good at teaching individually people that had academic or reading problems, whatever. She was perfect for it. Lloyd liked her right away. So I was very hopeful about that. Rodney stepped it out, and Rodney called. There were times he called home. He called me. I want to leave. Like I'm going crazy. It's like being in the Twilight Zone. You used to the fast life of the city, the South Bronx, Manhattan. Rodney now is a star in the city. People know him. So he goes to this high school that plays in Virginia. I mean, you can't even fly into there. I flew in. I had to take a plane to North Carolina and drive for 2 hours. Okay, and I know that because I went up there, and Lloyd knows. Jewel and I went up there with Lloyd. I said he got put out. He wanted to leave. Rodney, you gotta give him credit because it's not easy. I mean, I gotta go off a little. I mean, Carlton Hines, we put him in MCI, Main Central. Carlton Hines, I'm gonna say it, and if he had stayed at Main Central, that next year he would have played in the NBA for 10 years. But circumstances with family and certain things he was into, and they need me. And I'm like, you just made second team All-American. You have an 80+ average. Yeah, there's not that many, and that's always when I look at the video, I'm in the video. Duncan Hines, the Legend of Carlton Hines. If you see that, I'm in there. I'm interviewed.
Yeah, I actually saw that documentary. That was going to be my next question. Like, so Carlton, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was a really good player in high school. Like, what was it like coaching him? And how did you feel, seeing, the later years, when he got involved in that situation in his neighborhood, where he actually killed a man, and he started to dip into the street life, and then unfortunately, as he's coming back, he got killed. Talk about how Carlton was a person, and then seeing his demise.
Okay, you said you saw the video, so I was in it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I blessed Troy Russell because there were things that in that video that we talked about off camera that at the time would not have been cool to talk about. Right. Because I was an officer of the law. It's like you start with Rodney. Rodney, you got to give him so much credit for sticking it out. He makes parade All-American. He goes to DePaul. There was a choice between DePaul and Syracuse. I had leaned towards DePaul because I just felt that DePaul needed him more, and he wasn't going to be, and he wasn't able to look over his shoulder. And I was always kind of skeptical of Syracuse. And me and Baham, I spoke about that face to face. He's always getting the best players, so you're always having to look over your shoulder if you get hurt. You go from being somebody that maybe gets a chance to showcase your stuff and get drafted, that somebody else comes behind you and you're not playing that much. So Rodney really was enamored with Syracuse, like everybody. Mashburn almost went there as well. But I said, you go to DePaul. I said, they're on almost every one of their games is on national team at that time. You talk about the Blue Demon. They were big back then. You are on a track to get drafted. Quite frankly, if they allowed you to get drafted out of high school back then, you would definitely be a candidate. We're having, that's the way he had blew up after he did Truman exposure. Every NBA manager seen it. That's how Rodney, you give him credit for taking advantage of that. And he marketed, being at DePaul, he got marketed well with his exposure, but Rodney could play. And they're playing the top schedule. Carlton goes there now, same situation. Carlton goes to Maine. He's going to his junior year. We have been winning national tournaments. Carlton was on the biggest national championship team as a freshman. Mm-hmm. And then he came back. And then he came back with another group as a junior winner. So he won that. And so everybody looking at Carlton. Who's this freshman that he won that? What crew was that? Lloyd. Now I'm getting my crew mixed up. But I know he was on 2 of my national championship crew. And he played for Franklin his freshman year. He's, got honorable mention. He goes to Maine. Grades are great. He was going to go to Syracuse, which in that case I thought it was good for him. When you talk about how does he get it, I mean, it was the business. Before he went to Maine, that's what they were doing. Okay. I'm not going to even blame it all on me being in the corners. But when you coach and I know what I see out here. I'm very in tune with that side of life. okay, from my own upbringing and the things. And so I have coached a couple of players that part of me trying to say it wasn't just dealing with family problems. Players would, I'm trying to realize, get them out of this game without, I'm not, I can't gorilla them. I mean, because they're old enough to make their own choices. But Carlton and his brothers and, people in that community, they were making money. We ain't talking about $1,000 a week. We're talking about big cash. And that's very attractive, and it's hard to divest yourself from that. Don't criticize a man unless you walked in there. So there's a lot of truth to that. Now, there's some shoes you shouldn't have to walk in and know that shit gonna burn. I also agree with that premise. So that was another reason why I was happy he went to Maine. And his mother and his brother, they were like, yeah. Because I'm thinking Carlton we're gonna get a chance to go to Syracuse, he's gonna be able to time in the sense that he should get recruited. To go to the NBA, not recruited, drafted. But he comes home, the pool, family, Carlton loves his family, and I respected that about him. And like I said, he came to the gym and pulled up in the hour. I took him upstairs and we talked about it. And we went back and forth. I was angry. I'm like, listen, you know the risk of what you're doing here. He said, but my brothers right now, people messing with them and all that. And I understand all that part of the game. Like I said, I'm not naive to the game. And I couldn't, and then me and his mom's talk. And I just let him, I was like, listen, I think this is a mistake. And then the one thing I respect about Carlton, he said to me, well, I'm going to go back. And then he kind of stopped, because that's how he kind of looked at me and he said, I'm not going to say that. Because I'm looking at him, because he was being, I don't know if I'm going back. So I'm not going to lie to you. You've always been straight with me. I know you're trying to help me. He said, we'll see how this goes. And the rest, he never went back. When Troy, I can talk about this now. When Carlton had that incident with that gentleman where the guy they got into an altercation, the guy got stabbed, cut. One, I believe him that it was self-defense. Because one thing I would say, I ain't gonna never say never, but I know I could tell with Carlton being truthful. Most of my players with a relationship, they just went out sit there and bullshit. And so he calls me after I heard about it. And I said, don't tell me where you at, because the police were looking for him. He said, well, coach, I'm in a place where it's not too far for you. So we met at the Steppin', which is right there on the corner of the park. There's a pretty well-known restaurant diner. And we met there, we sat at the table, and he explained to me the situation. He told me, listen, that was part of the reason why I came back. These people were trying to, drill out, take me from my brother, my territory, about turf war, So after he explained that to me, I was able to give him a call, a contact for an attorney. I called the attorney, and I don't want to fudge it because my memory's getting. I think he ended up using my attorney. I'm not 100% sure, but I got him thinking on that track. I said, eventually you're gonna get caught. I said, you're gonna be in a car, you're gonna get pulled over for, a speed, parking ticket, whatever, and they're gonna run you through. I said, if you stay in New York, you're gonna get caught. I said, you need to get prepared. The best thing you can do in the legal system game is be prepared, be proactive. So he got an attorney. He ended up turning himself in. My memory's correct. And he beat it. He didn't go to trial. He ended up dropping the charges. I could be wrong. But I know he didn't do time for it. But you knew Carlton was never ever going to leave again. Right. Because the game and the pyramid of the game he was in, Carlton was just too important. It was too strong. And I mean, you're talking about buckets of money. It's hard to walk away from that if you've never. I've never had to be able to open up a suitcase and it'd be like $500,000. So Carlton grew up in Melrose Project, just like I grew up in Project. But Melrose Project, he grew up in a different era from me, and it's rough. It's economically rough. Mm-hmm. And last time I saw him was I went to a New Jersey Net game when Kenny was playing. Right. And it was a combination of, because Kenny, I got a chance to coach Kenny as he got from his junior to senior year. He came to play with us in some tournaments with the blessing of, that crew, because he joined a very dominant crew with David Kane, Conrad, Jamal, Ronnie Arnold, Carter was on that crew, Arnold McCullough, David Edwards, may he rest in peace, he just passed away. That was that crew. And we had always played against Kenny, and then but Kenny has a very great personality. You cannot really not dislike Kenny, even the players that. My thing is when you get between them black lines, nobody's your friend. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the way I was raised, and so my players were raised that way. But everybody generally liked Kenny. And my point is, I went to that game. Mashburn was on the Dallas Mavericks. He had got drafted by them in the first round, so it was Mashburn and Jimmy Johnson were on that team, and then Kenny was playing with Derek Coleman. So I went to the game with Darren Burnett and played with me, went to Columbia. And at halftime, to let Mashburn know I was there, and Kenny I showed the guy my shield to show him I was on the job. So I got some of my players playing. He said, okay, go ahead and say hello to me real quick. So it was kind of like a nice reunion because I go say hello to Mash, get me up, Kenny comes over, get me up, and we talk. And Carlton Hines was there. He comes walking across the court. Oh man, that's big. He got on this big, like Joe Namath from my era, mink coat. And you just can't, Carlton has charisma. He had that. Mm-hmm. He comes over, so now I'm like standing there, meeting Aaron, and it was like a great, I wish we had took a picture. He comes over, coach, he grabs me in. Him and Jamal, they all know each other. Kenny, they all give each other love. And we're doing this at halftime, right there, on the court. And that was the last time I saw him. We had talked. I gave him my number again. But he said, I got it. We talked. I said, give me a call. Let's go out to eat. And I never saw him again. The gentleman that killed him, is from my community. He's from up by Soundview.
Right.
Peter Gunn. One of my best friends who, is still my best friend with mom. So me and Jimmy would be walking around Soundview. His mom would come and talk to us. Peter Gunn knew who I was. That's Dave going down. So I didn't know him first, but I knew what he was into. And I don't know what fate made them two cross paths on a negative note, but it was just totally unnecessary.
Mm. And Carlton Hines.
It hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts. You part of also coaching, and when you're into this, I wouldn't call it a business because it's not a business; it's a labor of love. But there's a business aspect to it. Is you can't save everybody, and that's a hard thing to swallow because when you start to really see your young men. Like I said, I had this thing where I started telling my players, college is not for everybody. So I would come to the gym with the chief. I'm a civil service worker. My father was, and my father was my mentor. And he always said, listen, you always have to have a plan B. So I would constantly repeat what my father told me. You always have to have a plan B. So I would tell them, listen, when you come out of high school or you're in your freshman year of college, these exams come up. You're so geared into taking an exam. You're going to look at these exams and smile like, this is easy. The longer you stay away from education and when you start wanting to try to get into the public sector, whatever they call it, I think I'm saying the wrong term. You got the exam, you haven't been reading that much because now your life gets in the way. They become a little harder. But when you're first coming out of college, you're in college, you take an exam to become a police officer, a court officer, transit, correction, FBI, CIA. Those exams are like, this is just another exam. It's another reading. So a lot of my players that did not go to college worked in civil service. That's a success story to me. That's a success story to me. Like I said, even that, that was taken away from some of my players. Carlton, we lost a couple of players along with Tony Willie got shot. He was a good guard that played with us. We was hoping to get him into a junior college when he got murdered in Harlem. It's just hard. Because you want everybody to make it. What was his name? Vaughn Drew. It's rough. You got me thinking about stuff I haven't thought about while, so I'm getting a little emotional. But this is what it's all about.
Yeah. So moving into much lighter things, let's talk about the rivalry with Riverside.
Yeah, that was fun. It was, let me see where you start. It was something that, like I said, as some of the other programs started to go by the wayside, you got to realize in the 70s, in the politics that was going on, they was closing up all the after-school programs in the 70s. Unemployment was high in the 70s. Who was president? Nixon, and after him you had Carter. But it was like Nixon and Reagan, they had the trickle-down theory where they didn't think it was important to invest money into communities. When I say community, that doesn't mean black. It means whole community. You know, Italian communities, Irish communities. Their kids need someplace to go after school. They missed it as well. I mean, because most parents are working, and when you take away, like I grew up, when I went to 125, afterwards at 3 o'clock, the gym opened. 125 gym opened. And then after the gym, and then you also was able to go to Soundview Center, Bronx Center. Down, you know, so what I'm saying is, why we started becoming a funnel where it was looking like this Riverside Gauchos, because the nonprofit money was dried up. There was no more CETA program where there was money to pay counselors to mentor kids, keep them out of trouble. And that's why you saw the proliferation of gangs. Because there was nothing for them, you know, and I hate to use that as an excuse because there should be other things to do. And, you know, the family, the strength of the family, that's another conversation. So, but now you have Brooklyn USA going, you got some of the Queens programs going, some of the programs in Harlem don't have as much going on with them in terms of finance. So then you start to, they're only able, instead of having juniors and seniors, you started seeing programs only doing biggies and riches. And then after that, where you've been training these kids 10 and under, where do they go? Like I look at like Tommy, T.S. Bucks, Lamont Dyson, Sundo. Very strong program. I mean, greatest games I had coaching against those. John Black coached midgets but then when they start to turn 15, 16, there's less places. If they can't take them all the way through like they did back in the day, then where do they go? So then they would come to our trials. Or like Riverside had a relationship with certain programs that I didn't have. They was on the block for us and whatever, and I accepted that. But then as I'm coming up, and then people started watching what the Gauchos were doing, Lou and I, and they started looking like, wow, there's an alternative here. So when you combine that with what I'm doing myself very well, I'm constantly in the championships and biddies and midgets. I'm playing against Tommy, I'm playing against Lamont, I'm playing against John Black, and of that nature. And then Riverside was Honey Bun, Julius Edwards, we had some good games, definitely, you know. But now it's like, it was becoming like the cream of the crop. You know, I would have my players, Lamont would have, some of his kids would go play for Riverside. Who he had, like Henry Dowd came up with Lamont. I'm forgetting a couple of Mario, Eli came up with Lamont, but I coached Mario. I won somebody coached along with the Sunday with me. Lou was having some disagreements over negotiation of my, you know, how I viewed myself and what was going on with the program. So I coached with the Sunday ones, so I did coach Mario, Eli with that team, you know, how it started. But not to get off on a tangent. So now you have the battles, Riverside Gauchos, so every division, we almost always get to the championship. And so it became, we were the new kids on the block. Like you said, we was the 70s. I say to people, we both had different images and different perception how we do it. We didn't play in a lot of, nationally, we hardly ever ran into each other. Because they were already in, they were constantly in the AAU. We had met in the BCI, which was in Arizona. And the first year we went out there, we didn't play each other. I had Darren, Billy, and Pete Adlai, and we got home kind of early, which was a lesson learned because I kind of thought we lost the game because of a combination of fatigue and just maybe we didn't realize really what we was getting ready for. But a lesson learned. So the next year we go out there, I got Fred Brown that played with Georgetown, and the Riverside's out there, BCI, and they were well known out there. They have been playing in BCI for over a decade. And the guy that ran the tournament loved them. I like the people with the reputation. I say the reputation because part of it is we're building. You got a lot of people saying a lot of negative things about them that were just quite frankly bullshit, untrue. The thing of, they spoil their kids, they're always taking them out to eat in a nice restaurant, blah, blah, blah. They don't practice, which was a lie. They don't only practice, they just go out there and throw the ball and play. But then, then I would look at them like, well, if you believe that, then what does that say about your culture? So that carried out, remember this, I'm saying this to say the rivalry, we carried out when we went to BCI, Arizona. This was 1977. So in 77, I'm like 21, 22. I'm young, I'm brass. But now I've learned a lot. I really listen to guys like Mr. Mr. Black. I looked up to people like Mr. Reverend Burkett, Joe Paces, because some of my blood friends played. I'm starting to see what this is about. I'm starting to grow into what I'm capable of doing. I'm no longer getting texts. I never get texts. I went like 20 years without getting a text. That way, I told my players, let's focus on the game. I went to referee school to learn the rules, so I knew what not to talk about. So we're out there in MBCI. This is when the rivalry really starts. We're battling each other locally in New York. We go out there, and I'm gonna tell the story. Our first day out there, they tried to tell us to go home. I forgot, it had something to do with the dawn. Two of my players had they had broke curfew or something, something like that, and there was nothing to do. In Arizona, they went out. I wasn't happy about it, but they tried to use that as a reason to kick us out of the tournament. And Lou, intelligent, knows how to deal with people. Spoke to Larry Walker, but it wasn't like he gets his ass right, and he just tried to throw some stuff at him, whatever. And Larry Walker backed off. We knew that it was like they did, so that just motivated us more. Long story short, it was Fred Brown that went to Georgetown, Cosell Brown, Lonnie Green that played for Franklin, with Gary Springer, Richie Adams. Those were my guards. Eugene Morgan that went to Syracuse. Those were the guards. Up front, we had Dwayne Johnson that played for Marquette. At that time, he had made All-City 2 years in a row. Nigel Wallace that played with Mr. John Black. Gary Martin from Clinton. Rob Williams played for Division II school in the Bronx. We had like a small crew, quick style of ball that you see every day now. That's the way I would coach it back in the 70s. Spread them out, give and go, fill your lanes. We pressed a lot. Cosell, Fred, two of the ball came out. Fred was ready to play for Georgetown, but that's the way we guarded him. We got to go through the last. So when we get to the 7th, so they put us in a tough bracket. And I love that, David, because there was a lot of politics and jealousy that went on when they said, we're going to get the Gauchos wrong. We're going to put all the ranked teams in their bracket. And what I would look at my players and say, fine. I said, because we're going to get through this bracket. We come out here to play against the best. I'm trying to get you guys recruited. And to be the best, you got to beat the best. And if they put us in this bracket, and they put Riverside out there to be in an easy bracket. They won all their games by 20. We had some nail hangers. We played against LA Watts to get the championship. LA Watts was a powerhouse school from LA. And we beat them in overtime. So we see Riverside in the semifinal. They had a nice crew. And I knew their kids. Steve Burke came up with the Sundogs. He was with Riverside. They had Gary Springer. They had brought this kid in from Kentucky. They used to do that a lot. They would bring top players from other states and put them. They had Brent Barrett. They had Matt Doherty that played with University of North Carolina. They had Mike Moses, who was a great kid. He played at St. John's. Mike was real cool. Steve Burke, Mike Moses backcourt, Gary Springer, Brett Barrett up front. I'm forgetting some players. So we played them in the semifinal, and it was a war. And at halftime, I'll never forget this. I know he passed away. Larry Walker, the director of the tournament, Whit walks past me and says, yeah, I'm going to make sure y'all don't win this game. This is the director of the tournament. So I heard him, Lou heard him. So Lou said, don't forget about that. I told my players, use that to motivate us. Game went down to the wire, but we beat Riverside. Went to the championship. And by then, we were so battle-tested that we ended up blowing out the team from South California by 20. I'm saying you this story because it tells you the rivalry and the politics that sometimes went into play. That was off the court that affected the rivalry, the way it became intense. And it wasn't with the players because the kids all knew each other. And eventually, I know my attitude was, we all trying to help these kids. So Steve Burke and Gary Springer always gave me love because they were doing well at Riverside. No problem with me. You damn it. We rocking. We doing well, you doing well. But sometimes with the staff, I thought looking back that we did not do our job, we let it get very personal and get overly critical. So we win the national championship, and I'm gonna finish the story to show you the politics. Dwayne Johnson, that made the All-City from Monte Cristi, played on that team with Tony Red Broom, and one of the Fleming twins that went to the NBA, Vern Fleming. They had a crew. I think they took the Catholic school twice. He should have got MVP. Not only does he not, and Fred Brown that went to Georgetown made all time, and Cosell Brown made all time. Riverside came in 4th, and Steve Burke got MVP. And even Steve Burke was surprised when they called it out. And we gave him love. We all looked at D. I was like, I looked up at Larry Walker, me and Lou was like, Dave, calm down. And I looked at him, and Didn't say anything to him, but I gave him a gesture. And we never went back. We never went back. And that was, you know, so when I say a lot of times we didn't play, that was our first taste of, you know, who wants to deal with all of this? This is supposed to be fun as well as all the work of it is supposed to be fun for us and fun for the kids. Now, yeah, you got to prepare your kids for the real world, but to me, that out there, it got out of hand. So we won. That was the first national tournament we got nationally. You know, we had one tournament in Jersey with Dave Crosby and that crew, Drew Dowd. You know. But where you could say we were national championship in the under 7 division, that crew won it. And we never went to BCI, and that's how the guy got us from Vegas. He was starting something that ended up being bigger than BCI. And so we would always go to Vegas. So now we go back to New York, and we have to play Riverside in the Tiny Archibald Championship, which we won. And Cosell got MVP in that. We had Billy Reiser. I like to know where he's at today. A white kid, blonde white kid, 6'5", he's bad. If he had grades, I don't know why he didn't play Major College ball. We had Billy Reiser. I had Pinckney, was like real young. He was coming up. And then Wendell Walters, who went to Iona. We took the Tiny Archibald, and we took the Whitney Young, which back then was those Whitney Young was the tournament that you wanted to win. It was almost like a men's tournament. So we won that. It was battles. It was constant. But I think, you know, even at the time, I'm not even talking about retrospect, it made our kids better. It made them, I mean, those were games you got even more up for. You know, Mike always had this phrase, I would tell my players, my sensei always taught me never underestimate your opponent. Your opponent. And it's a martial arts term that I apply to my life. Never underestimate anybody. In fact, it's better to be underestimated. Because if they underestimate you, it gives you an advantage. Okay? So we would constantly go at it in the leagues in the city. The Golden Hoops came around in the early 80s. Like I said, I had the blessing of coaching in the first 8. And I went to the championship in 6 out of 8. If you're somebody that digs up articles, because I be seeing stuff on social media, because I'm friends with a lot on social media, like you know, with the Riverside kids. Sometimes I watch them argue. I don't really get interject, but I enjoy their banter. And I said the Golden Hoops, the first 8 Golden Hoops, we went to the championship in 6. I lost once to one of the Riverside teams in the championship. And it was overtime to Kenny Anderson and who was on that crew? That was Carlton Hines and like they Carlton played on a couple of Golden Hoops teams. But I went 5-1 in championship, which I felt very proud of in terms of that tenure there. But most of the times in the Golden Hoops, it was us in Riverside in the championships. You talk about Rucker was a little bit more diverse. Neither one of us really dominated. We was always in the contention. You know, if there's 4 divisions, we might win 2. Riverside might win 1. Of course, I'm gonna be biased because you're talking to me. And then you'd have Dykeman and you'd have the Sun Devils a lot, and Tommy T.S. Bucks. You know, citywide was Riverside's tournament. So whenever I was able to win that, which I did a lot, it meant something because that was kind of their league. I mean, Ernie Ross was the one that sponsored it, which a lot of time gave them advantages. But you know, me and Lou looked at it like, well, shit, if we can overcome that, I mean, at the end of the day, we come out better for it. But looking back on it, I think it was a great thing that we did, the competition. Like I said, there were times when we as adults, I thought we fell short because we got into some personal things that we should have been able to rise above, you know, in terms of the coaches having beefs, which I don't know. I could tell you stories about that, but I don't know if that's really relevant. But I can tell you one story. One time we was at LaGuardia House. I was coaching against Wayne Griffin. I have a lot of respect for Wayne. I mean, Wayne, you know, he sees this, you know, I got, you know, no hate for you at all. Never did. We got in so much intensity. I think what it was, back then it was supposed to be a tough game. But by then, my crew was rolling. That was the Dow Wright, Chris Brooks, Rod Strickland, Boo Harvey, Lamont Thornton, Tip Dog. Who else was on that crew? Tip Dog, Lamont, CC. Up front, I had Eric Brown, who lives in Florida now. He's an officer, and he was in the round. He played for Boys and Girls. That was the fun. And Dwayne Ivory. That crew, we had to Vegas. There were crews. We went on runs where we were like 30-1. So by the time we ran into Riverside at LaGuardia, which is like towards the end of the summer, I mean, the place was packed. At halftime, we was up by 18, 20. And they got frustrated. And I took my jacket off. I'm an officer. When I take my jacket off, what's under my jacket? My firearm. So I had my fire strap and all that, and I threw my hands up, and it's like the whole gym, David, you can hear a pin drop. And then I realized that the referee, who was the referee? It might have been Modest. He was great. He looked at me like, yo, Dave, what are you doing? And I'm like, yo, he pushed me, and I got my hands up and waving me. And it was like one of those moments where, like, this is silly. Not to mention, you know, I'm responsible for these kids.
Yeah.
And now the plus side of it was there was somebody in the crowd that was bothering Rodney, and he was distracting Rodney. Where I went over, I told Rodney, don't worry about him. I said, you know my rule, I was playing with him. Because the guy kept threatening, he kept talking to Rodney, because the Guardia House is a match. The crowd,
yeah.
And Rodney said, you have a rule that you just concentrate on the game, you'll never let anybody with your play. So don't worry about it. So I called up two of my friends. At halftime, after that happened with me and Wayne, you know, everybody calmed down, they made me and Wayne shake hands. And, you know, we realized it was just immature on our part. And then at halftime, my friends came to my main man who just passed away last year. I said, yo, this dude is messing with Rodney, affecting Rodney's contract. Rodney went and sat next to the guy. And this is the kind of shit that went on. And, you know, Baller said a few words to him. And next thing you know, you see the guy get up and leave. Rodney, so we were fine. And I said we ended up winning the game by 20-something. You know. That was the Guardia House championship with that crew, you know. I think both of us, looking back, have a lot to be proud of. I think we're missed immensely. People may want to criticize, you know. It was something that we couldn't control, and you know, I mean, I know for myself, I enjoyed battling. I enjoy going to Brevoort and playing against in this. Resurrection and programs like that. What's the guy's name? Gil Reynolds and who had his group. I mean, they made me better coaches. We weren't going 9-0. You know, you went into the playoffs like 5-3, but it was a 5-3 with some learning done. And I had to go to games by myself and scout and look at something. Well, what did I not see when I lost to Gil Reynolds or when I lost to my man from Resurrection? And or when I was in Queens and I was playing Elmcore with the Watkins, maybe with some Leroy and Cecil. I said, I was always looking for runs because that made me better. Those were games, you know, coaching against Joe Bostic. We didn't want, I know I didn't want it that way. I didn't, you know, because I still felt as great of a job of us having these massive rivalries. There could have been more kids that could be served. And when it funnels down to us being the team everybody wants to play for, or they have to come play for us for a need to think they got to get national exposure. Only that was a problem. You know, now there was a flip side of that. And part of the reason why it broke down today, and that's a whole it's politics, was you had sneaker companies like Nike and Adidas and the NCAA saying that they thought we were too powerful. And so they started breaking down the Gauchos and Riverside by giving money to everybody. And so, but you got guys that have no business in the sense of do you know what you're doing? And now you're bringing teams nationally where they're looking at. I had stopped coaching, but I'm watching. You know, I'm talking to guys like Tommy and whatever. He's like, yo, it's like 17 when you go on the road and playing in these tournaments, and it's like it's weak now. It's all broken down. It's watered down. That was done by design because we you know, me and Lou saw the writing on the wall in terms of what they were trying to do and how they were coming at us, especially when we built the gym. You know, the NCAA started investigating us, and the NCAA is a goddamn mafia.
Yeah, they are.
So I'm gonna call it what it is. I mean, you know, I'm retired now. I have no intention of coaching again, and they have too much power to control the billion-dollar industry. Anybody that they receive to be interest, they team up with the sneaker companies and all that, and the newspapers to put out these negative articles. Or one coach makes a mistake, we were all painted with the same brush. So now we have to take these kids, predominantly in basketball, black kids, we're going to give them a label. We're going to rank them, which means now we got control. These are economic decisions. This is about you controlling our natural resources, the children of our community. And that was done by design. And so that's one reason why New York basketball has been hit hard. I don't know how other cities were able to combat that, but they came on a conscious mission to break up the Gauchos and Riverside in terms of the influence and what we were doing, so they could get control. And the result was New York basketball. Part of that, that's not the whole reason, but part of it is you got to, New York basketball is nowhere near now in terms of the talent pool that it was back with the era you actually made.
Mm-hmm. So you also mentioned on the East Squared show, shout outs to Eric Harris Sr. and Eric Harris Jr. You did mention that, you had kind of like a pipeline with Stevenson going as an alumni.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, like I said, I was part of the first graduating class. In fact, some of my fellow graduates, I know one of them, what was his name? Some of them that come to my English teaching actually graduated with me. Then when he came out of college, he went to Stevenson to teach. My main mentor, she rests in peace, just passed away, Dr. Monroe. She was a very powerful person in my life, and so I felt good, when after I started coaching, I graduated in 73, I started Gauchos 74, Gauchos 74, summer 75. So Dr. Monroe was still there, so I would talk, when I placed kids in the school, but she was looking out for them. By then, Ron Kestelman had moved on to college, but I had a relationship with Steve Post, who was the head coach then. In fact, I almost became an assistant coach at Stevenson. We had such a good relationship. I was going to do that in the winter, but the PSL coaches, and particularly Benjamin Franklin, Stan Dinner, they made a big deal about it because I wasn't a teacher in the school. So Steve told me right before the season started, this was the team that they won the city championship. Eddie Pinckney, Steve Bolden, Chris Reed, Fred Brown, Stretch. They ended up beating Franklin, they were ranked #1 in the nation at the time to go to the city championship. I was supposed to be on the bench coaching that team, but I was helping them with their practices. I had coached all of them during the summer leagues. We had took Rucker seniors with Ed Pinckney and Steve Bolden and Byron Strickland. I think Byron got MVP. Fred Brown was playing with me everywhere. I knew Fred's older brother. That's how he became a Gaucho. I'm from that neighborhood. Fred's from my neighborhood. And his brother had saw me doing my thing with the Gauchos, and he said, "Yo, let my little brother play with you in Portchester," and the rest is history because Fred played with us in junior and senior year. So I felt my players were safe there, but most of my players, basically because I'm coaching in the South Bronx. I'm not coaching like at Kip Spade in that community. I'm coaching in the South Bronx, and Fred Brown brought Ed Pinckney down to me from up there once, and Darryl Reed, who made all city from St. Raymond's, he came down. Now they're hearing like, yo, this guy from our community, he's the one that's coaching the Gauchos. We should go down, come to the trials. And so now I'm looking at some of my kids. My theory when I was being director of the Gauchos was I want to put my kids in different schools so they can flourish. And this ties into your Stevenson question. Let's look. Rodney originally went to Rice his freshman year. Ty Joy went to Truman. He went there they both graduated from the 9th grade, so he went to Truman as a 10th grader. He's a starting point guard for Truman with Steve Lapis, who ended up coaching that. Dedrick originally went to Florida because he had family out there. And then something didn't happen, it didn't work, he was unhappy. I can't remember the dynamics. But then he comes back to New York before the year is out and he wants to play for coach. Now, this is so I want them all to be able to shine. So I don't want them competing against each other. Now, when Rodney ended up going to Truman was because Rodney was ready to play varsity, and Rice had this arcane rule that you got to play freshman ball. Or sophomore, when he was going into sophomore year, he had to play JV. Rodney's rate is better than their starting guards at the senior. He was frustrated with that. That was part of his frustration. So he ends up transferring to Truman, and the history is they end up becoming state champions. Him and Ty Joy. Dedrick, Ty is a good recruiter. Ty, they all grew up there. Ty wants me to put Dedrick from Truman. And I'm like, no. I mean, we're cutting into each other's playing time. And so we go, so I call up Steve Post, and I told Steve Post about Dedrick. Steve said, well, he doesn't live in my district. I said, yes, he does. He said, well, you say he lives on Jason? I said, no. I said, I work in the courts. I know the legal process. I said, if his parents is willing to let him come live with me. I do that in quotes.
Live, yeah.
Okay. And so we actually went through the process. Mrs. Urban, I love her to death. Great people, strong woman with her family, and she was down with it. She said, you know, you think it's, you know, I told him, I said, listen, Dedrick, outstanding, very good student, outstanding, always a straight A student. So he's going to be in the honors program in Stevenson. Go there. He's in the 10th grade, and he made it. I told Steve, he's going. I don't care who your guards are, and I knew who his guards were. He's going to be able to get started. And Dedrick started the whole 3 years there. So Dedrick was the first one. No, really the second one, but he's the first. I put Tyrell Rodriguez in there, maybe, but he didn't stick it out. He ended up falling into the life like the way we talk about Carl Hahn. I mean, Tyrell Rodriguez would have been all city college ball player, but he got caught up in life. He ended up getting murdered. That's another one I lost. Dedrick was the first one that went through, and then after that, same thing with David King. He played with St. John. He lived in Harlem. Mm-hmm. So it's again, I speak. We do it with the parents. I go get the papers from the courts, and it was legal because everybody knew. I mean, like rivalry. Riverside had their affiliations with their school, just like I have with Stevenson. If Riverside had more affiliations because they had been around longer, but everybody knew Time was a Riverside school. Okay, you looked at Time when they were dominant school, almost everybody on their team was a Riverside player. You looked at Stan Denner's team at Franklin, Stan Denner and Lloyd, we had a relationship. So the thing they complained about with me at Stevenson was they would be hypocritical, but you're doing the same thing at Franklin. You got coaches on Franklin's bench that are affiliated with Riverside Church. And so, but that was that was part of the rivalry that I thought it got a move right. How much of a difference could I have made being this as a coach at Stevenson? Honestly, between me and you, a whole lot of difference because I'm good at what I do, and I would have been an asset to Stevenson. You won the city championship without me saying that. I know what I led to as a part of it. And so that was my feeding program with Stevenson. Me and Post had a good relationship. He came to my practice, he saw what I was doing, and he would, so I said, when Fred Brown brought Ed to me, Ed wasn't the Ed Pinckney that you saw at Villanova. Eddie needed to learn how to play like everybody else. When you saw Eddie, when he played juniors in Citywide, at the beginning of that summer, the play you saw at the end of the summer, I mean, even the referee says, he's like night and day. You can see him in awkward comedy. He kept coming down to the gym. Coming from uptown to Bronx, that's a long ride. And Fred, kept, would say, listen, just a man you need to practice with, play for. And you speak to Eddie. Eddie just called me about 2 months ago to say, that Stevenson connection. They won a couple of championships. I know that relationship contributed to the only winning championships, which is a plus, because I think winning helps what you're trying to do with these kids. But at the same time, those kids went to college. And Steve Post was strong about that. And the teachers, my relationship with the Stevenson teaching staff, the few I still knew, but I knew them well, they kept an eye on my kids. They would keep an eye on them in the hallways. There were times when I walked into school as a surprise, and they were spread. Coach Dave was there. And they were like, "Oh man, what's going on?" My sisters was in there. I had 2 younger sisters that were 10 and 12 younger. They graduated from Stevenson. Both of them graduated from college. So that Stevenson was a very strong school academically. From the time it opened in '73, it started to change maybe as you got towards the late 80s, where it started going down, for want of a better phrase, to where by the time my children were, 90s, that was my son one day even said, "Dad, what do you think about me going to Stevenson?" My son's straight A student, but my daughter. I was like, there's no way I would send you to Stevenson because the environment had changed. But that Stevenson connection was strong. But at the same time, I built up a relationship with other high schools. I had Mashburn and Jamal Walker and Ramsey Kelly and Cardinal Hay. I had helped with Shonell Scott. He ended up playing for Riverside. He left to play for Riverside. Shonell came up playing with Davidson Smith. He was a Gaucho for us. I put him, Cookie, and Ray Lynch all went in there at the same time. So those are crews where you split them up, everybody gets a chance to make all city. Everybody gets a chance to shine when the Coast is scouts, but yet they're not all piling up on top of each other, competing for the same playing time. Rice also, I put a lot of kids in Rice, but it was all done with a plan. St. Raymond's, kids in St. Raymond's. So, but my closest relationship, public school wise, was Stevenson. I didn't have a relationship with any of the other public schools like that.
So let's talk about, the building of the Gauchos gym, the beginning, the origins of the Gauchos gym when it first opened, and also playing against the Soviet Union / Russians.
Oh, yeah. We opened the gym in January 16th of 86. I know that was our second attempt to build a gym. Long story short, originally Lou and the Brofmans, Ann Brofman, Edgar Brofman, their sons, Aoife Brofman, and I'm forgetting the other two names. They were so important of the Gauchos, they would actually come to the game and keep the book sometime. But Dave was saying, like, listen, we need a home. We had other friends sponsors, sponsors. We were private sector sponsored. We were not a nonprofit. We did not get money from the federal or state government, which gave us ability to be separate autonomy, if that's the right word. We didn't have to fill out, we're doing this, with private sector money. There was just me and Lou, basically. Like I said, a lot of my friends stepped in and helped me out. Marlo Franklin, Tony Lawson, who made All City from Stevenson. Guy Nugent. They would cover me when I had too many games at one time before Fred Neal and Dave Jones came aboard. We need a home. We're practicing at Dalton. We're practicing at the West Side Y. There were times when we would lose a gym, you know what I'm saying? And then we finally was able to get 197 John B. Washburn on 135th and 5th Avenue. But Lou was like, listen, he had this dream, like, we need to have a Gaucho gym. So he buys the building on 25th Street. Filmways, right across the street from the bus studio. It was a Filmway studio that was a band that they weren't using anymore. And with the people that were sponsoring the Bronx mainly, but with other people, John Tish and Charles Bruin, and they were contributing. And the community board there really just, they got with the community board was saying, well, you're building this gym in our community. And we're coming from the point of view, like, this is going to be an asset to the community. It's an abandoned building. We're going to have we have a program going on now, 10 and under 12 and 14 under 11. We're helping kids get into school. We're helping kids academically. A lot of kids going to college. That got pushed to the side. Well, if you're coming in here and we have a list of people that should be your director, we want you to do different scouting program. We got these other people that want to do this and that. And Lou looks at him like, well, first of all, I have a director. He said Dave McCollin is the athletic director, and also that, his title is athletic director, charge of special projects, and he's also the head coach. Well, no, but we got to have one of our people in there, and you have to expand your charter, et cetera, et cetera. And Lou says the charter is working with people and keeping them out of trouble.
Right.
All the community centers are closed. All the after-school programs are closed. They didn't see that as being viable unless they can have their piece of it. And it became frustrating for our sponsors, the Brofmans. They got frustrated. They tried to, have meetings, and we had fundraisers, cocktails. It's politics. You got to rub, see who's who and what have you. And it became frustrating where after owning the building, they sold it. And we stayed at UMass 197, and then eventually regrouped after a few years. And this time, where you see the Gaucho gym at now, it was an abandoned factory. And if you notice there, it's not really a community, at least at that time. Now Hostos has expanded. But at the time in 86, it was just like auto shops, a lot of, different storage places or what have you, and kept it on the down low. And it took about 2 or 3 years to build it, and a lot of imported material, the gym floor, the bleachers from Ohio, the wall, the granite from, some of the stuff came from Italy, if my memory is correct. And the only one that knew about it outside of Lou and Joe Fishman who was at that time, was also a major part of that whole process for Fishman and Sons, and the Brofmans and people like that, was me.
Mm-hmm.
And we kept it a secret for a long time until we finally finished it. Now, by then, Dave Jones and Fred Miller came on board. We opened the gym in '86, so they had been on board since about '84. Dave was with coaching development and coaching duties and midgets. I was now just doing the older guys, juniors and seniors. After a while, I did midget junior seniors for a while. Then Fred was helping me with the seniors. He would travel with me, and Fred went to Hawaii, went to Vegas. When we took the Vegas championship, he was my assistant coach when we won it with Rodney, Boo, and Eric Brown, Dwayne Ivey, Down Wright. That crew, Lloyd Daniels, Boogaloo, can't remember his name, from Brooklyn. But anyway, bringing a smile on my face, remembering these faces. So then we opened the gym to surprise everybody. And as quickly as we opened it, the Russians had planned this schedule around the United States. And Lou comes to me, I mean, the gym hadn't been open, the clean on the floor wasn't even wet. You know, the bull was still sticky, you know. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we're still, you know, doing well in the tournaments, what have you. 86, let me say, Vegas, 83, 85. We went to the Final Four in Vegas, but we didn't win a national championship. But I knew next year we would, because I did most of the whole crew was coming back. That was A-Train, Arnold Bernard, Jamal Walker. Who was the forward? Billy Singleton, John Duck, Walter Hurd. But they were coming back the next year, so I felt confident we were going to win in the end. And but we hadn't won. We come back with a little, you know, okay, we're getting into this next campaign. And Lou was saying, we got to play the Russian. Now, you got to realize the Russian team was not high school players. They were men.
Right.
And it was not a secret that the Russians used steroids in part of their athletic development. When you saw these gentlemen walk in the gym, they were built like, I mean, like, look like NBA body. They had NBA body. Their guards were like tall, 6'3", and, you know, big legs, well chiseled. I mean, they send their kids, their players to an academy. It's a funnel system. And it's, you know, your job is to be, your basketball is your thing. You got to do all these things. You could see it. And, you know, later on, looking at my team, that was one of my smallest groups. I mean, my starting back row was A-Train was only 5'6". But he's a blur. A-Train, you know, was one of the winningest players I've ever coached, not to mention one of the most confident. So he's used to playing against people bigger than him. Arnold had 3 different speeds. It was fast, faster, and gone. And that was something, you know, we talked about that. I always tell them, don't play the game at the same speed. You got to mix it up. You know, that's an asset. You don't want to show people how fast you are until you think it's necessary. And he was a very intelligent player, very good floor general. Dow Reed, who made all the name with Dwayne, Jamal Walker was my first guard off the bench, and most of the times he played as much as the starter, like most of my bench players did. I didn't keep a heavy bench. I always tend to only keep 8 to 10 players because I want everybody to know that they're going to play. And that once I get to trust you, I don't need to have 12, 15 guys because I'm not going to play that many anyways. It's not coaching feasible. And I'm not training you properly if I'm not getting you in the game, which is a whole other concept. So they were kicking our ass. My front line their guards as big as Billy Singleton, who's 6'5", played for St. John. Jonathan Duck, who also just died like David Edwards from COVID-19, but he rest in peace. Was 6'6". Now they were beefy, but they were not tall. They're playing against their front line, 6'11". They had a 7-footer. So we struggling, they elbowing us. You know, it took us, and they went up and it looked like it was almost going to be a blowout. It was down by 18-19, like in the first half. I think in the halftime we was down by like 15. Third quarter, and one of my halftime speeches, which a lot of my players talk about when I talk to them. I'm very, the most important quarter in the basketball game is the third quarter. And I cannot stress that enough. That's my philosophy. I believe that in basketball. I never coach football. I think it's football. Because what you say to your players and how you reach them as you analyze what went on in the first half, whether you're winning or losing, how you start the third quarter. If you win the third quarter, I always tell people you're going to win 9 out of 10 games. I said, because the momentum of the third quarter, the adjustments you make to counteract the other team in the third quarter, that they thought they was going to keep doing. Let's keep doing this. This is working. And you adjust. By the time they readjust, if you know what you're doing, you should not be able, you do not let them get back into it. You keep control of the game. Clock management, where the ball goes, foul, getting people in foul trouble. So that's what I told them. I said, listen, you're okay. Let's put on I'm going to steal the phrase, put on your big boy pants. That's something Mark Jackson says when he does commentating. I like that phrase. Stop whining about no call. That's not our thing anyway. We can beat these guys with our quickness and the fact that as I look at your faces in this locker room, you guys have won almost on every level you play with me on. You guys know each other to your series. And if you just hit me with intent, with 2 minutes left, I'll find a way to win it. And that was always one of my phrases. One of the few phrases my players remember. And we got it down going into the fourth. We won the third quarter. I said we was down by like 17, 18 and a half. So going into the fourth quarter, we down by about 12 or something like that. Then they went on a little run. It looked like we wasn't going to sustain it. We went up by 50. Then we went on, and then we finally climbed back, fall back. And with 2 minutes left, exactly 2 minutes, I jumped up. When we scored that basket, I jumped up and called time. And I said, okay, now I got this. And I said, we're going to win. And we were down 10. They were trying to pack it in on. And I looked at Dow Reed. And I said, I need it from you. Dow Reed was one of the best three-point shooters in the city at that time. I said, I need you to hit these threes. I said, if you hit 1 or 2 of those, it opens up the lane for Arnold and Jamal. And they can drop it on the Billy and we can win it. Arnold came on court, Jamal came on court, and they drew the double team. Dow Reed down 10. Dow Reed with 3 consecutive rebounds. By the time that coach called timeout, we down 1 with like about a minute left. And then we kind of went back and forth. I said, we don't win the game by 3 points, 2 points, something like that. And that was only their second loss, and that was their 21st game. And they was playing against the best teams from every state they played in. They beat Florida. I think us in Florida, only 2 programs that beat. But they beat, us in Michigan. They beat all the other top. Ohio had every team, every state had their best players try out to play against this Russian team, and they beat all of them teams. 19 teams they beat. We were 1 or 2 that won. And Lou had called the media about it. David, I had players call me from Europe saying, Coach, it's on the news. Y'all beat the Russians. I mean, it just took off. It was like really just the program notoriety we got from winning that game just resonated throughout the country. Even our rivals, the coach from Riverside, Mike Francis, came in the gym and it was so packed. Traffic was jammed up all the way to Yankee Stadium. The cops came in there and spoke to me and Lou when the game started. Like, there's just too much call. What's going on in there? So we explained to them. Cops had to assign people because there was no place to park. All the scouts were there. And I remember, I'm saying this proud, rivalry. Mike McElwain came in the gym. He couldn't find a seat, so I let him sit on the side at the end. Not on my bench, but if you know how the Gaucho gym is built with a wall.
Right.
Yo, sit down. We had our battle and all, stuff. And, he was sitting there. I said, everybody, Tom Zukowski, who I looked at as being a mentor, because when I first started coaching at 19, he encouraged me. And then when I started coaching with Lou, he really kept encouraging me when I was kind of wondering, should I be doing this? I heard he just retired. They all came up to me after the game and said, Coach, that was out. And they felt it was a national thing. America, Russians. All the rivalries went out the window that day. Everybody felt good that the Gauchos beat the Russians. And it's about it's like we are American. And don't get me wrong, the whole thing I said with you about not standing for the American flag, which I don't tell too many people about, that had nothing to do with me not respecting the flag. And I mean, my father's a veteran. We got veterans all in my family, okay? I'm law enforcement, okay? So I don't want to get into that, but that's nonsense. Part of the gift of being American is the freedom to express yourself. To say like we could be better. So anybody that says that, I disagree with that. You don't have to disagree. We don't have to agree, but at the same time, we're all still Americans. We're all part of the same umbrella. Just thought I had that. Just talking about the Russians.
That's a great story right there, Coach. So, 1991, you wound up, leaving or retiring from the Gauchos. Like, what made you want to step away from this organization that you helped build?
It's a couple of factors. One of the main factor was when I felt it was time to leave was in '91. My children, my twins are 7. I was a boy and a girl, and I am traveling so much. I mean, we're traveling 5, 6 times a year. You got the Vegas tournament, you got the curly nail tournament that we played in twice a year in Orlando. San Diego tournament, John Farrell ran a tournament out there. We went to Hawaii every year. Numerous other sub trips to Virginia, Jersey, Connecticut tournament, blah, blah, blah. I'm constantly on the road. I'm also a court officer. So I'm juggling that. I mean, I don't have unlimited vacation. Okay. So there's some stresses there. But more importantly, I remember I'm watching the thing I told you, The Gift of Education. Jenny, the mother of my twins, they're going on trips. And back then it was videos, and I'm constantly not able to go. So that was eating at me. In fact, when my twins were born in '84, I told you I was leaving. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, my twins are born. Fatherhood is a big thing to me. My father's still alive. I was raised by my stepfather. And when I say my father, that's my stepfather that's still with me. And he's been my mentor. He's the man that made me a man. And told me the gift of, because he came in my family, and my mother had 3 kids. And he stepped in and took over that role. And I'm saying this to tie into why I left. And I didn't know my real father that well. But that was something I always stuck at my core. I'm not going to get into the reason why. It was just him and my mother divorced. And by the time he was ready to connect with me, I wasn't interested anymore. This is my father, my stepfather. But from that experience, I always said that when I became a father, I was going to make sure I did not do that with my children. To be there with your children. There's this phrase that people kind of frown at, this undercurrent to it. 90% of being a parent is about being there. You can do all the other things, as you're on the road. And I also saw the pattern of a lot of coaches I came across while I was coaching, coming up in my 20s, that did not have great relationships with their kids. Or their kids felt pressure to play ball just to spend time with their father. I didn't want that. I didn't look at that positively. Now, don't get me wrong, that has turned out great for some people. But I'm talking about Dave McCollin and my life experience, how I perceived it. So that was eating at me from the time my twin was born. I mentioned that to Lou back in '84. He said, you can't leave now. We're really blowing up. The gym is being built, blah, 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 blah. And, I persevere. But you got to realize I'm working 70-hour weeks. And I'm not spending enough time. A lot of times my kids wake up in the morning, they come, when they're young, and they see daddy's in bed. I'm basically recovering from that day. And that was a big factor for me. And then we were having, it got to a point where I don't know if burnout is the right word, but the journey, when you get to the destination, sometimes there's a sweetness to it, but there's a bitter sweetness to it. But then it's like, it's like you climb you reach the goal, we got the gym going, we're doing this and that. And it was like, what do you do next? And so sometimes that was, me and Lou to get to that, to climb that valley and the things that we did together. It got to the point where sometimes we was kind of grading on each other. It's the reason why you see coaches can only stay someplace for X amount of time in terms of relationships. Where you're coaching, you're being a coach in the relationship that's symbiotic with the building of the Gauchos. Once we achieved it, they got to the point where I think we needed to get away. We needed a rest. And that was a perfect opportunity when I looked at it, and that I wasn't spending enough time with my kids. I knew my main job, regardless, and I got paid eventually. I worked my way 2 hours. I was compensated for building the Gauchos and being the head coach and director of the Gauchos. I'm not ashamed to say that. This whole concept that, I say it's a labor of love, but you know, it's also work. Okay? And I don't think people that work in communities are just like teachers, are not compensated for it because you're dealing with one of our precious commodities. You're molding the lives of kids. So yes, I got paid for coaching the Gauchos. Not right away. Not the second year. Something that, you know, I had to negotiate for. Me and Lou were partners that had a friendship, but it was more of a business relationship. You know what I'm saying? You know, there were things that Lou, our partner was complimentary, that there were things Lou did I could never have done. The way Lou was able to build the fundraising after program, the people that he knew to give us the autonomy and the dream that he built and the whole thing, you know, and my job was as a director was to deal with the other programs and the coaching and the mentoring, and I followed up with the kids with the academics and blah, blah, blah. So we both had our very defined role. But part of that was we spent an inordinate amount of time together to where it was also, that was also part of it. That was another element, you know. And it was just time. I said, I'll be honest with you, I left when I got, it was at the peak of the Gauchos. You know, but then when? I mean, I have so much self-pride. I don't think if I had stayed there, that the program would ever go through a low. I didn't have lows. I mean, I had one in every division, but we was always on the come. You know, we was always winning something nationally, and my players were at each point where other scouts were packing the gym. Dave Jones had brought the Gauchos to the Roundmore tournament from Patterson once he came on board, and we built it. To be the Gauchos were coming to the gym to watch the Gauchos. I was making relationships with other coaches I kept competing against from Boston and DC and all that. So they were like, "Hey, coach, how come you guys are?" So yeah, Dave Gaucho Roundmore was the perfect tool. And there were times you came in the Gaucho gym, it was like all the top coaches, John Thompson, Bayheim, all of us coming to the gym on the regular during the Roundmore. But it was a lot. And people don't realize if you're passionate about it, that it takes a lot out of you. Okay, it's a job. And so it was like a confluence of the coming together of all that. That 90, 91, that I listen, I need to step away. And stepping away means retire. You know, there was no other role for me to play. There was no way I could subordinate my role because part of being the director of the Gaucho, there are other things that are being poked at me, or to people that you got jealousy, you got different people, and that's with any corporation, that's on any job. And it was like, I don't really need this anymore. Yeah. You know, and I was good. I retired for 91, May of 91, you know, until, I'm assuming that's your next question.
Yeah, so, you already knew what I was about to ask. So, in 1984, you decided to step into the bad side. You joined the arch enemy, Riverside Church. All right, how did that come about?
Man, you could phrase it that way. There were people when I came out of retirement that said that, but I'm gonna give you the backstory to it.
All right.
Obviously, and I say this with respect for Dave Jones and Fred, once I left, they were running it. Okay, and like I said, when I left, the last team I coached was Stephon was coming to play with us as a freshman. So he was on the Gaucho team. I won the Gaucho Round Ball, right? And I left right after that. Gaucho Round Ball team was Sherman Anderson, Stephon in the backcourt. Up front, it was Felipe, Hashimu Evans that played for Kentucky. Felipe. Who am I forgetting? Because they were a set crew. Sherman. Who's Sherman? Felipe, Sherman, Stephon. Damn, I'm drawing one of those over 60 blanks. But it was a group of kids that I had coached for a while. I remember we played Riverside in the championship and coached against some of my players, you know, that had moved on. Rashawn Thompson, who came up playing with Gary, Sting Raymonds, and I know Tyler played against me in that game. He came up with Gaucho. But those things had happened. I said I had left. I was leaving, but I came back. I had left that, but Lou had actually coached the Round Ball that summer because he wanted to win, and he asked me to come back. And obviously people on staff wasn't happy about it, but I stepped in and coached that last tournament. And we played Riverside in the championship. We was down by 21 at halftime. Some ridiculous number. And we came out from 21 down and ended up being on my double figure. That was my last game. And I did that in the summer, even though I had retired in May. And I used to wear that's what I'm saying, the rumor mill. And the rumors and the things I thought in terms of people maturity. Okay, I was court officer in '83. I'm a retired court officer after 33 years. I moved up in the court officer rank. It's a law enforcement job. There are times in terms of the biasness and the rivalry where people, oh, he left the Gauchos because I was told, people told me, Jerry McCollin came to me one time, he said, yeah, they told me you left the job because you got fired and you was trying to get your job back. I got fired from the courts. But sometimes now I'm looking at Jerry, and Jerry said, I don't believe it. He said, Coach, I've known you since I was 13. He said, I'm just saying that when you go, it was the rumors they spread. And I don't see why, if I left and it had nothing to do with you, why can't you just leave it like, okay, Dave retired, you moved on, and then you go do your thing. And I said this when I was arrogant to me. I take on Mr. People feeling the need to put me down as they were running. What was the purpose of it? If you're in charge now, do your thing. I'm with my family. I have a very good job. I make my family unit is fine. When David McCollin, whenever I stop coaching, I'm not going to be around the tournament. And, to me and Tom said he always knows that. There were times during my coach career where I took a break once before. And I said, I do this because I like working with kids. I don't really like sitting in gym. Or, most of the times when you saw Dave McCollin, actually, I was there to see one of my players. That was it. I didn't go to games just to, because I have to. I'm the director of the Gauchos, and I don't. That's not my. I know who I am. I'm very comfortable with kid. And my point is, this ties into your story. What happened is that bothered me. I thought it was petty. So now here it is. 4 years go by. Okay, I'm fine now. I'm still working in the Brooklyn courts, downtown Brooklyn, and my kids are, doing fine. I'm spending it. To this day, I know it helped me really bond with David and DMDC. I do. I mean, because there were times when I would be able to go to their school more. I was able to. I remember when we went on a school trip, things I would have never had time to do if I was still coaching the Gauchos. Mm-hmm. And just the downtime, and just them seeing me and just being able to feel me and me being able to feel. They were my life. They are the motivation of my life. Okay, that makes me do well. Okay, not that I couldn't do it, you know what I'm saying? But that's the thing. That was important. So then, like around '94, I think it was '94. Thurman, and me and Thurman have always been cool. Thurman played. I remember before he was coaching at Riverside, times I would be coaching at Millbank, and Thurman would come up to me. I'm a little older than Thurman. I think I have about maybe 12, 15 years. It could be. And I knew he respected me as a coach, and he would kick it with me after the game. Why did you do that? What was you thinking there? I didn't understand. I was like, yeah. So I know, I'm not saying I taught Thurman how to coach, but I know that me and him had some great coaching conversations when he was young, and Thurman started coaching young, which I admire, because I come from that pedigree. I don't know how we saw each other. He had called me, or we ran into each other somehow in training. He's like, no, would you think about coaching again? And I was like, not really. I said, I'm cool, So, well, don't you miss the game? Of course everybody, of course I miss it. I mean, I'm good at it. It's something that gives me energy. I love the whole process of mentoring kids, the whole training and getting them there. I never lie to people I don't miss it. But at the time, in the 90s, when I'm in my 30s, going on 40, I've traveled a lot. I'm an intelligent person, just gonna come and say it. And you realize what's important in life. And once I made the decision to leave the Gauchos, I did not have to leave the Gauchos. Okay, I was glad to see that program was still going on. But so what happens is me and German talk that summer. I can't remember what was the cause of it. Me and German talked during that summer of '94, because I ran into Kelsey Stevens, who ran Millbank. Mm-hmm. And he had said, listen, I have a coach that's leaving on me, Dave, and me and you was always cool about it. I went to Millbank and stepped in for somebody that had to leave. I think it might have been, I think Don Jenkins was coaching him, maybe. who ran the Sun, his great brother. And I know about it, and I said, okay. I said, well, a lot of times I come to the gym, I'm a problem. If I brought David with me, my son, sometimes deal would meet me there with Jenny, their mother. So I know that summer I coached Milbank, and that's where I was seeing Thurman. And Milbank played in Rucker. They had an automatic spot because they, that's one of the sites, Milbank. I had a crew with Chopper, Mike McLeod. Oh man, if I forget name, Donnell. Who was my forward? It was a very small crew. Chopper, Donnell. Come on, I was forgetting some of the names. It was a group of like 7 or 8 kids. They really knew. Oh, Bronski Docker. We ran to play at the St. Francis in Brooklyn. And what's the little kid's name? Little God. He'll come to me. Well, I had a crew. I started running practices. And after the first practice, Coach, he looked at me like, you see why I need you? Because I remember Bronski and I'm making all city at right. He was like 14. He walked out of my practice and he went to a drill. And a couple other people, they were fighting me. And it took me about 3 practices to where they got me. And then I think a lot of the parents knew me from the Gauchos. And they were like, are you kidding? You got Dave McCollin in there practicing with you. Get your ass in there, and blah, blah, blah. So long story short, I coached Milbank, finished up Milbank that summer in the middle of the season. We made the playoffs in Rucker. We played up at UDC, the tournament that Andy King's father ran. When Andy played with me when he was playing with his father, USV Kings, he's a politician now up there in the Bronx. Andy King, he's an assemblyman in the Bronx. And Pete Aguilar, that went to Temple, he was a Gaucho. They ran this tournament that was really big called UDC. So I put the Milbank up there and I coached them and we made the playoffs there. And it was such a small motley crew, but we had a great time there, so I'm really proud of that team. So then Thurman and Ernie said they came to me afterwards, because I thought I was going to be doing that one little thing. And they met me. I said, well, come meet me at work. I'll meet you up for lunch. So they met me at the Brooklyn Courthouse. We went out to lunch. And they asked me would I come coach with the Gaucho, with Riverside. And when you say going to the enemy, the whole dynamic of it is what you got to realize about it. Dave Jones is now the athletic director, but I was there, he was the gym director. And he coached the younger division. Now he's in it, and he's running that in Fred Neal. Now Lou called me. When you in the room, because me and Lou, we didn't break up acrimoniously. Lou and me were fine when I say about negative things being said about me to disparage me. After I thought with it, Lou was not a chronicle. So me and Lou, we talk periodically. In fact, we looking at it, us separated from each other, made us appreciate what we did, and also it changed the nature of our relationship from that being more as friends, as opposed to when you're working together, it's not just friends, it's business, and you can't mix the two. You try to get it some nights when you're out celebrating or having a drink or you're talking, and we were really close when we coached together, but now it's different. It's a different view. So he was, and then the Gauchos, I could not go, if I wanted to come back, I could not go back to the Gauchos in a different role. That would be beneath me. I'm gonna be blunt. I mean, why? I'd rather not go. Why would I go back? And also, I'm just coming back. And I'm only 3 years removed from when I left the program as athletic director and was coaching most of the main stuff and running the program. That door wasn't really there because Paul Brown and them were running it, and they like, we don't need Dave McCollin. We're doing fine. And Thurman and them knew that, and I knew that. And so there was that combination. Now I don't blame him. Why would you bring Dave McCollin back to the Gauchos? The whole paradigm. So I respect that. I'm not saying that negatively. So my thing with Riverside was somewhat similar. I was like, listen, I wouldn't mind coaching. I'm starting to get that itch again. What is it y'all would ask me to do? So Ernie was very, listen, Ernie was, and they were very candid. He said, listen, I want you to coach with me. Because one of the things I brought up to him as a counter argument was, you have an extremely large coaching staff, and if you bring me in, I'm capable of coaching one division. And Thurman said, you can coach everything, and you coach everything on. I said, thank you. So that's going to be a problem for whoever's doing your midgets and junior and all that. They see me walking in, they're going to feel threatened. And well, they should be, but they don't know what your intentions are with you. I said, my point is to you is, if I come to Riverside Coach, I don't want to deal with a whole lot of bullshit. You know, I'm very comfortable with what I'm doing. You guys are, by then I was at to say, you know, Riverside had kind of moved up a little high. They had some really good crews. I couldn't what I saw. And I'm, you know, in terms of the rivalry, I thought Riverside were doing better than the Gauchos from me looking at it, in terms of just what they were working with. But that's me. I shouldn't have said that. That's maybe a hand on it. Long story short, Ernie said, "Well, listen, it's my program. Thurman's my director. We have a lot of respect for what you're capable of doing. We have a lot of respect for what you're doing. I'm sitting there, I'm looking at you, you know." And they had never seen me at work. And they even brought it up. You know, we heard all these negative rumors about why you left and all that. And I said, you know, you don't even have to talk to me about that. I don't feed into that. I said, I said, I know what I am and I know what I'm doing. And I said, I know what I have. Okay, and I would put what I have against anybody that's talking negative about it. It's not that relevant. So he says, well, I'm just saying that to say, I understand what you're saying. So you're going to answer to me in turn. And so they brought me back to do their juniors and seniors coaching with Ernie. I told him I didn't really care about traveling. Really, I told him I didn't want to travel, but that was one of the reasons why I worked. That was a factor why I left the Gauchos, but I didn't want to have to do that. I said, you guys go away on your national trips, I'll cover your back. And that's basically what the nature of my relationship. I was, every time I came to the park, I was with Ernie. Okay. I only coached with Ernie. I was his assistant coach on paper. And some games, Dave, I was the assistant. I mean, because we had good teams. But then during the we had this little thing, and Thurman was aware too. When, you know, Ernie admitted, I'm not getting any younger. I'm getting a little slower. Having you there with me, because I respect your opinion and all that. You can talk to me. You can say, like, you know, like you need to take him out, stuff like that. And then a lot of games, Ernie turned over me. And it wasn't something that wasn't even him. You know, he would tap me on the shoulder like, take this. You know, and then he would slide into the assistant, and I would coach. And then with Thurman and Ernie and all of them went on their trip, I did all the Rucker games, all the UDC games, and we rocked. I mean, my couple of years with Riverside, I only lost Rucker Junior once. I dominated every tournament they had me step in and coach. I was winning. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fact that I wasn't the athletic director, and I didn't have all the things. Sometimes it bothered me when because me and Lou was still cool, so that was a little awkward. You know, me and him, when we would see each other at the park, we spoke about it. You know, because I said, me and him did a lot together, so that was awkward. But I didn't look at it like me being with the enemy, because if I had walked in the Gauchos gym and said I want my spot back, Paul Brown would have said no. So you don't dictate my life. You don't decide what I coach anymore. I'm, quite frankly, one of the best coaches that walk up and down New York City. And if they're going to put me in an environment that's comfortable, and you're saying you don't need me, then when I coach against you, kick my ass. That did not happen. It didn't happen. It didn't even come close. Anytime, I was an asset to Thurman and Ernie and Riverside, and not only locally. Then eventually I did, like when Kenny Satterfield's father, or Kenny Satterfield down to me, and Kenny was playing with Julius Allen Kids Bay, but Kenny Satterfield and us, we all go way back. We from the hood, and Kenny was playing on the 1500 team. I started traveling with the 300 because I'm looking out for Kenny Satterfield. But we had a crew. Kenny Satterfield, Omar Cook, Kyle Cuffey. I coached Ronnie Williams for Practice Kid. Mike Boyd, who's the head coach out there. That was his coach who's a coach, a varsity coach now in Brooklyn. Kenny P.
Kenny Pretzel.
Kenny P. We was playing in Kips Bay. Kenny P. was sitting there with me on the bench. Kenny P. is outstanding coach. Me and Kenny developed a good relationship because Kenny wasn't threatened by it. See, if you know that means those are the little things that go on when people go do little things. If you comfortable in your own skin, without you, if you're a good coach, why should you be threatened by it? Thurman wasn't threatened by it. Okay. And so we flourished. That's how I was there for like 3 years. And like I said, it was clear. Boom. We were rocking. I got a chance to coach with Ernie and them. I got to know Ron Artest, Elton Brand. And when Ernie couldn't come and they saw me walk in the gym, they respected Ernie, Elton, Eric Barkley, all of them. Speedy Claxton played Riverside Senior. His father knew one of my best friends who just died a couple couple of years ago. So, you know, he was like, yo, Keith Lewis, who was a playground legend. Him and Speedy's father was cool. Speedy had MVP for me at Rutgers Seniors and UDTCT. We talk, you know, and it was so relaxing because there was a comfort in not being the athletic director of the Gauchos, not being Thurman and Ernie and Mike Francis. They did all of that stuff, and I was kind of like in an umbrella that was shielded. And when they needed me to cover the back on the trip, like I said, we took 15 national championships in North Carolina. I was the head coach. We won the 1600 AAU. Bronski got MVP. Derek Strom. And I can't remember the little guard that for me. We went in the 1600. Those are national championships that on my second go round at Riverside, I feel very proud about. I feel very proud about the kids I coach. And I'm still, you know, some of them still keep in touch with me now through Facebook. That play for Riverside. Because at the end of the day, it's all the same thing. It's about mentoring our youth. It's about doing something positive, you know. And you talk about Latino kids. I coach, you know, a lot of white kids that came up. You know, Baskin Mustafa, Justin Duquette. You know, you're going on and on. It's about everybody needs mentoring. I don't care what color you are. I don't care how affluent you are. How poor you are. Right. So it was all the same. And by then, you know, you talk about mid-90s. I'd worked with them till the year 2000. And then then after that, it was time to stop.
So you were with them for 6 years, basically.
No, well, I'm getting my years. They don't even feel like 6 years. I think I might have 94 might have been a little earlier. Maybe from 95 to 99.
Okay.
Yeah, about 5 years. Wow, you know, I didn't really put the time. You're right. I was there a little longer than I may have really. You know, I said I did winter and summer with them, and I had a good time doing the Rucker Leagues and all that, and just you know, it was a good experience. I thank them, and I thank May Recipes Ernie Lloyd for giving me this opportunity. But no, I wasn't motivated to come back to beat the Gauchos. I mean, I said I'm not that petty. But of course, me coming back meant that I had to beat them. You know, and I did. You know, my coaching record against them when I came back, I'm very proud. You know, the people try to say, well, you don't have it anymore. You want, please stop. You know, let's not get this twisted. You know, all that didn't happen for nothing. I paid my dues. I took my time. I listened. I appreciate the mentors that came before me. I appreciate the people from Bronxville that I watched play ball. Bobby Kofa, May Refugees. I go on and on. I'm a byproduct of all those people. You know, George Booker from Our Savior was a good mentor of mine. May he rest in peace. I listen when you learn, and you know, if people want to listen, I pass it on.
So this is one of my favorite questions that I love to ask before I lead into the final question. If you could go back in a time machine to say 1975, what would you tell Dave McCollin at 20 as he's leading the Mitchel Bullets and making that transition to be a coach with the Gauchos?
What would I tell him now, looking back on it?
Yes.
In retro? Oh, my wife would love to hear this because she's one of the things. I would have told him to finish college. And that you could finish college, you can maintain your single lifestyle. Like I was single, I was young. You know, you can do more than what you're giving yourself credit for. I do regret, and I alluded to that I did not finish and get my BA. And it wasn't for lack of aptitude or grades. I'm focused. I'm a B+, A- student on any level. Okay, but I had a tendency to let myself get distracted, and when you let yourself get distracted, you make excuses. And it took me a while to say, you know, eventually I saw that well before this conversation. But no, that would be what David McCollin at 65 would tell David McCollin at 20. You know, make sure you get that. But everybody kept drilling in my head, Dr. Monroe, my mother, my father, a lot of people, my peers, you know, listen, you're such a bright student. Stop messing around. Stop getting distracted. Stop being on the. I kind of looked at myself. I stayed on the fence, which I you know, I thought, of course, I would have, because now the flip side of that, if I had got my degree, where do I think I would have taken that? I mean, I got college offers to be assistant coaches right before my kids. I mean, you got to realize the Gauchos have blown up so much, and they look at it like, well, you have control. And I hate using that word because I didn't view it that way, because I looked at it as relationship. But you got so many players coming up that, you know, like the next 8th graders, 9th graders, you got you're winning them 15. I had took statewide pitches 5 straight years, and then Dave Jones came out of me. I think he took it another 4 years. He was always developing kids. And so you talk about college coaches, and high school coaches are seeing that. So if you're a college coach, if you can get Dave McCollin to come be on your staff, and with the reputation he has established, even with people I didn't get along with when I first started, eventually they were said Ernie Lloyd was a big rival. And, even well before he came here to the coach, what the enmity he turned into respect. And people, the proof is in the pudding of your work. You can say all the negative and good, all the rules you want. Just watch what I'm doing. The consistency. So I'm just saying that if I had got my BA, I'm pretty sure I would have probably went to college before if I had my degree, like after I would have got my degree in 77, it would have been prior to my twins being born. Because I always had that thing about it's hard to be a good father when you're a coach, high school, college, because you spend too much time away from your kids. But maybe if I had did that, I would have found a way to work that out differently. I have no doubt. I have no doubt. I feel very confident. I coached against a lot of guys on my travel circuit that ended up coaching in the NBA on assistant coaching level and what have you. And they ain't have shit over me. I played chess and basketball, and and I know that. So I think now the only flips, I know I'm getting into it too deep, but the only flip side of it was, and they're dealing with it now. It turned me off that most black coaches are just there to recruit the product. And I was interviewed for this book called Raw Recruits. If you Google it, it was by this guy that's pretty well famous. Something had a long name, something Tarkanian.
Jerry Tarkanian. And I actually have a copy of that book too.
Well, if you look at the guy that did that book, he did it with another author. I'm in that book. And I was supposed, he really came to interview. Came to me at City College. I was playing in the cutie tournament with the Gauchos, underclassmen. And I was only supposed to have a small, he's out here, he's interviewed me for a couple of minutes. He ended up giving me a whole lot because I went off based on his questions about the hypocrisy of college and that these student athletes need to get paid. And that ties into what I'm saying about what I would do, talking to David around 75. I think I could have been a good head coach if I had my degree. But the thing that I would have to overcome, which black coaches still have to try to overcome, they only want us to bring the product. And for me to keep my job, I got to trust that if I'm bringing you all these kids from New York City, like Ronnie Al coached at St. Jack. I think Ronnie's still with us. And then from there, he went to South Alabama. He had told me actually, after I won one of the Vegas championships, we had sent Ronnie Al players. Billy Goodwin went there, Harvey went there, Carlton Hines went to St. Jack. He had a pipeline with the Gauchos. Ronnie was good people. Him and Lou had a good relationship. He had to say, why don't you come with me to South Carolina? And you could be on my staff. He said, you get your house, this, that. Now, at that point, I'm a quarter horse. But the part that scares me, and I even told Ronnie that, I said, if I was to uproot myself from what is a good job that's going to give me my pension down the road, I was to uproot my family. If you don't come off, what happens to me? Because at the end of the day, being an assistant coach, being in the talent, you don't control your own destiny. You got to hope that your head coach knows what the hell he's doing so that you can move on to the next level, even if you even got an outside shot being a black coach, become a head coach. Because it's hard. Black assistant coaches, not many of us get a chance to be a head coach. And even when we do, we get a chance, just like in all sports, we got to build bullshit program. So that was at the time because I didn't have my degree. And Ronnie said, don't worry, you can get your degree at the school. I was a sophomore at Lehman. I had went to some of my credits. I would have probably went in there as a sophomore. He told me. We talked about all that, but I'm looking at this like, Ronnie is a good coach, and he had a good career at South Alabama. But if I had one on his staff, I don't like giving somebody my life like that. And that I know these guys that play college ball. I think if you play for a college, it becomes an easier transition. Because it's almost like you're still staying in college. But for somebody that's already been in the world, I've been in the world since I was 17, always being self-sufficient, thank God, the way my parents were, always had my own crib, always moved my own beat. For me to give away that security, my future security, and then I bring you, I'm just going to have it there. I bring you Carlton Hines, Rod Strickland, I'm just going to call names, Lloyd and Eric Brown. They all come there because they love Coach Dave. And you don't win. I come back to New York, what do I have? I got to go there and kiss ass and try to help somebody else. And that's the part about and that's one of the racists in this two areas. There's not enough opportunity that you're giving them. No. Try to make it, but not competent. So that, you know, I know I went off on a tangent, but that's what I would tell Dave McCollin. I would have got my degree, and I think I would have probably pursued becoming the head coach on the college level, hoping to go to the NBA.
So, final question: what's next in the future for Dave McCollin?
I'm living it now. I'm at my daughter's house. She just moved to Georgia as she's waiting to get a house built, and I've been playing with my grandson.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I expect I'm having more grandkids in the future. I know that. Have been a grandfather, having grandchildren. Since I retired, and my wife Jewel has a lot to do with it. My family sees me more. Even before I retired from the course, I've been retired from the course for 4 years. I'm still Coach Dave in terms of how I carry it, but now it's with my brothers-in-law, and my sisters, and my father, and when I see my nieces and nephews, and they sit down and talk, the way I'm talking to you, this is the way I carry it. So, having the time to appreciate my family, and as you get older, the number one priority is your family and your health. And that's a bright future, because I've had my share of replacement surgeries. When I go to the airport, I light up the machine. So they all, I got more titanium in me than the average human being. And that was a byproduct of my job. It was a physical job. Sometimes you had to get into tussle with the prisoners. And there's also a byproduct of coaching. I don't know if you ever see a film of coaching. I had to have everyone squatting on my knees, which once the referees realized I wasn't bothering them, they gave me that grace. And I think my hips paid the price for it. That was the way I would watch the game until I called timeout. So it's about health. This is pre-COVID-19, and then you magnify that now, and it's about family, and I cherish that. And it goes back to why I retired in '91. It's about, I wasn't spending enough time with my family. Now I got more time to spend with my siblings and their children, and my wife, who's the love of my life.
Indeed. Well, Coach, thank you for coming on to share your testimony. I've enjoyed these nearly 3 hours talking to you, and I wish you nothing but blessings and good health moving forward.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, and stay safe. And thank you for the blessing of this conversation.
Indeed. Well, everybody, this is episode 60 of Hoops Talk with Dave's Joint. For those that, played for Coach Dave for the Mitchel Bullets, Gauchos, and Riverside, and every basketball fan around New York City, support Coach Dave by checking this out on YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. Everybody stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.